This is the Planning Commission meeting for October 17th. We're calling it to order. Would you take roll, please?
Commissioner Stimson? Here. Ware? Here. Aspinall? Here. Varga? Here. Brickner?
Here.
Hannigan?
Here.
Manti?
Here.
And Chair Treflet.
Here. Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as published?
I motion to approve the agenda as published.
Is there support? Second. It's been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is a public hearing for zoning text amendment 2 of 2024 regarding chapter 34 of the zoning ordinance.
Charmaine, you want me to? Okay.
You want to go first? Chris is going to, Joe's going to do it.
I'm going to introduce this item, and then we'll get into discussion, and we'll all kind of respond as needed. All right, so Eric, who could not be here tonight, has provided draft zoning amendment text for this public hearing. It touches 7 different sections of the ordinance. Those are listed at the bottom of his memo. And then he's provided the language for each of those sections. The 2 districts that are being touched are the B3 General Business District and the LI1 Light Industrial District. Generally speaking, these amendments touch auto-oriented uses. So we have a set of these uses, drive-through or drive-in restaurants, gasoline service stations, automobile repair, veterinary hospitals, commercial kennels, vehicle wash land uses that are principal permitted uses in the B3 district right now. They would be moving to special approval uses. And then gasoline service stations and vehicle washes in the B3 district would be limited to the redevelopment of existing sites. Beyond that, the sections that are mentioned in the first paragraph there, the B3 and LI1 districts, are amended to include cigar bars and lounges as a principal permitted use, coin-operated amusement device arcades, billiard parlors, and other similar indoor recreation uses. They're presently special approval uses. They become principal permitted uses. The vehicle wash and indoor recreation facilities over 5,000 square feet are currently special approval uses in the LI1 district, and they become principal permitted uses. And then finally, we've got some use standards that are amended. Those are associated with gasoline service stations, that's section 428, automobile repair, that's section 431, drive-in restaurants, that's section 435. Outdoor space for sale or rental of new or used motor vehicles, trailers, mobile homes, boats, recreation vehicles, and other similar products, that's section 436. And then vehicle washes, which is section 440. One thing I'd like to note in section 436 is that the long-standing policy of the city has been to require that the display area meet the setback for the building, the front setback of the building. However, that was never explicit in the language before, and it now is. So that should clear up some confusion for those applicants in the future. That's the summary of what's being done here. I think we can probably throw the door open for discussion at this point and questions, if any commissioners have any questions or discussion. And then ultimately, you do have a public hearing on this as well.
Shouldn't we hear from the public first?
You can do that, yes.
I did want to add one note. There's been an update to the code that you have tonight from previous versions that does have language that our attorney's office helped us with to deal with some non-conforming potentials in the future. There is language that speaks to locations that are currently used and occupied as lawfully conforming space would be considered conforming in the future. So that would deal with lawfully operating locations currently in the city and allow them to continue on with the ability to keep as they are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing on this item. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to speak? So if you do come up here and give your name and street address. Oh,
Oh, someone's here. This would be the right time. Good evening. I'm Sam Jafer, Representative Agent Remax Lead and Edge, on a gentleman who's in a process of acquiring permission to have a dealer, used car dealer. He's already a business owner in the city of Farmington Hills, and this meeting has been adjourned twice. He's already spent over $20,000 to abide by what the city's expectations are. We've spoke a few times to Mia Brockway, who's been very helpful in guiding us through the process. I just want to make sure that one of the ladies there spoke that they're considering all the work that this client, Mr. Haddad, has already completed and paid for and complied with what the city expectations are, so we can continue to work on getting the authorizations to be that used car dealer at 28975 Grand River. Thank you.
That item is up on the agenda a little bit later in the meeting.
okay. Anyone else wish to speak on this topic? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Return it to, yes, I know you want to talk. Mr. Brickner.
Well, Eric actually took all the questions down that I had the last time, and he put a little thing together. Doesn't mean I agree with it, but he did clear up a lot of the issues on the gas stations. My question is there a real reason why we want to change our ordinances to be much more restrictive than they were before? I mean, I can live with most of these things because I'm not doing half of this stuff, but the only one that does irk me a little bit is about the requirement of 8 seats at any drive-through restaurant. Is there a reason why we need to have 8 seats or any seats whatsoever as a part of the ordinance?
The explanation in the memo that you received was the author's response to that. We have found throughout the community, there are a number of locations where people will voluntarily add outdoor seating at their own volition for carry-out, walk-up locations, and frequently they may not even attempt to get permission formally from the city because of the standards for outdoor seating that we had previously on the books. It encourages walkability. It encourages people to linger and enjoy the space that they're in, whether it be a walk-up, a carry-out, a fast food. That's the purpose for the requirement for outdoor seating. And we've found typically the number of seats does come close to 8.
Well, I mean, I don't mind if we allow for that. That's fine, but my question is this going to be a requirement before you can have this? You have to have at least seating for 8 people outside. If they want to do it, that's fine, but I don't know if I want to go as far as making that a requirement before they'll be allowed to have a drive-through. So that's the question. I mean, I understand the concept, and I think that's a good idea, but the question is, do we want to make it a requirement of someone having a drive-through as a part of the plan?
I see.
So, and if you look at it on the backward side, that no, we don't allow for that, and this is putting this in to allow for it, I agree with that. But is it a requirement in order to have a drive-through, you have to have outdoor seating? I don't necessarily agree with that. But if the intention was to allow for that, if someone is applying for it and it's not in our ordinance now, it makes sense. But I just don't want it to be a restriction about having drive-throughs. So you tell me if it's just it's something that's required, or if it's something that will be allowed because we don't have it in our ordinance already.
It is a requirement as written, and the rationale behind it, based on my discussions with Eric, was that we do have a master plan that calls for increased walkability in the city, and a drive-through use with no seating at all basically is a use for cars only, and it does not further that goal. And that's the point, that's the purpose of the inclusion of that particular item in this amendment, and that's why Eric has written it as a requirement rather than an option.
If it was an option, I'd be in favor of it. If it's a requirement, I'm not in favor. Then you're stifling someone trying to put something into our community because you want to have outdoor seating. And as we know, that outdoor seating only works maybe 4 or 5 months out of the year. So, again, I think allowing for it is a great thing. Requiring it is being restrictive.
Joe?
On that same section, it goes on to say 8 seats shall be provided, but section 34-4.32 shall not apply to such space. And I don't see section 34.432. So what does that mean?
Oh, allow me to pull that up and elaborate a little bit.
Sure.
So 4.32 is titled Outdoor Space for Seating Areas Accessory to a Restaurant. And it places 6 requirements on outdoor space accessory to a restaurant. It can't be located within 200 feet of a residential district or the residential portion of a PUD unless there's a major or secondary thoroughfare in between.
Well, that doesn't matter. We're already saying you can put a drive-through there. So go on.
It has some floor area standards, and some notes about, not interfering with pedestrian circulation or vehicular circulation. It allows it to encroach into a required setback, and it requires some off-street parking when you expand your seating based on having the outdoor dining, and then there's some lighting fixtures as well, fixture standards as well. So that's what section 432 does, but this exempts these uses from it.
In other words, this allows you to just set a picnic table out there.
More or less, yes.
Pretty much.
All right, is the picnic table big enough for 8 people?
How big are the people?
You need 2.
Otherwise, I would suggest changing 8 to 6. Asking them to set a picnic table out there is not an undue burden.
It's the commission's discretion how
Okay.
to update or approve or modify.
And I'll say that's what A&W Restaurant has there on Grand River, and I see people using it. Okay? Even the employees go out there.
Anything else? Dale?
My general concern with this, that this is so restrictive that I think it's going to prohibit uses and opportunities for redevelopment. I know you're trying to put down in language things to address issues, but I think until we look at parcels, pieces of property, and how they lay out or whatever, I think this is too restrictive, and I won't be in favor of it, passing it on to council.
So on this outdoor seating, is this something the planning commission could waive, or could we put in wording that it could be waived?
The planning commission can request a modification to the code if they choose to.
But as written right now, we couldn't waive it. If this was enacted, we couldn't.
No, you'd have to set it on for Board of Appeals or that variance process, the way it is currently written.
But you could add waiver language.
You can make modifications if you choose to as a body.
Yeah, I'd be in I like the idea. I like really promoting it. But I think having the ability to waive it in a certain circumstance would be a good option on it.
Yes, Danielle?
Can you go back to where you said there was some added language that the attorney's office helped you with for already existing properties? And say a little bit more about that, because I didn't understand.
Okay.
Charmaine?
Yes. So we've got language within the ordinance that was added in with the assistance of our attorney's office to address existing properties that without this additional language would be considered non-conforming. So in being non-conforming as an existing legally operating location, they could have issues in the future with the way that they're currently operating the site or with financing for loans that they have, commercial loans for the property. And there's a couple of sections within it, and maybe Tom can help me out with the exact location within the regulations for that.
So if you recall, when you had the conversation, starting now a couple of months ago, the idea was remove gasoline service stations and vehicle washes from the B3 district, but allow the existing ones to redevelop if they choose to. So in other words, new ones can only come in a different district. So instead of the sort of parenthetical that said redevelopment only, which is what it said in the version that Eric gave you, we put that in a section of, a different section that talks about vehicle washes, and a different section that talks about gasoline service stations, and had the language sort of a little broader. Trying to find it here. I guess it might be in the document in front of you, but basically what it does is the same thing. And so for
I've got the language for vehicle washes here, if you'd like me to read it. Within the B3 district, vehicle washes shall be permitted only on a zoning lot that is being actively used and occupied as a lawfully conforming vehicle wash on the effective date of the ordinance adding this subsection 34-4.40.2.
I see that called out in the B3 for the gasoline service stations and in the B1 principal buildings as well.
which page is that on in the, sorry.
In the packet, I believe that would be page 20.
Hang on.
It's the final page of the amendment package.
Yeah, there you go. So, under the gasoline service station section, I don't know if you can see that, Danielle. So item number 2 at the bottom of one of the pages, these aren't numbered unfortunately. It's a clarification along the lines of what Charmaine said. Within the B3 district,
Oh.
gasoline service stations permitted only on a lot that is already actively being used and occupied for a lawfully conforming gasoline service station on the date of this effective ordinance. So it's just more words to say what that parenthetical in Eric's draft said, which is basically, if you already got a gas station, you're going to be able to stay, and you're not going to be non-conforming, which troubles banks, and so you'll be considered conforming, but there won't be any new ones in that district.
Okay.
Sorry, took me a minute to
Thank
find
you.
that language.
Any other questions? Mr. Brickner?
Yeah, I'm looking at this 34-4.35 drive-in restaurant thing, and it says an outdoor space for seating accessory to the drive-in restaurant comprised of at least 8 seats shall be provided, but section 34-4-32 shall not apply to such space. Do you know what that is, Mr. Schultz?
I just asked that question.
We just went
Yeah,
over that
that's
with
what I
Joe.
just summarized for Mr. Manti.
Oh, I must have been reading while you were talking.
And it's really just a handful of specific regulations that you're saying you don't need to worry about those. It's a relaxation of outdoor seating standards.
Okay, any other discussion?
I move to recommend to City Council that zoning text amendment 2, 2024, which proposes to amend the Farmington Hills Code of Ordinances, Chapter 34 zoning, Article 3.0 zoning districts, and Article 4.0 use standards, Sections 34-3.1.25, 34-3.1.29, 34-4.28, 34-4.31, 34-4.35, 34-4.36, and 34-4.40 to reclassify various principal permitted and special approval uses and to add and remove various use standards be approved with the following changes on 34-4.35, item 1, section C be reduced to 6 seats and be able to be waived by the Planning Commission.
Is there support?
Feel like that.
I'll support that.
Mr. Manning, is there discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
Can I get an example of when or why we would waive that?
Just probably how it sits and, you know, if it's too close, the only place that it could go would be too close to a main thoroughfare. That would be my thinking is it wouldn't normally be, but if the site plan really doesn't fit in the site plan or provides a safety issue, we could waive it.
So, and those are reasonable, but doesn't the 20-foot buffer already gives us that built-in protection? I don't want us to get into coming up with ways and reasons to undermine the master plan. And I feel like intentionally putting in something to waive the intentional thought of creating walkable areas and sitting areas is doing just that.
I guess there's a lot of different ordinances that the Planning Commission can already waive, and we very rarely do. And that just gives us extra flexibility.
I guess just maybe to allay some concerns, we would, when we change it before it goes to City Council, it won't just say Planning Commission can waive. It will say Planning Commission can waive if it makes certain findings. So there will be some limitations written in the language that make it not applicable if there's plenty of room for it. So we'll put some inherent limitations on the waiver.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Yes, Dale?
I just think coming out of the gate with the master plan, I'm kind of surprised by the drafting of this ordinance. To my way of thinking, this is more restrictive. We're trying to micromanage sites and peculiar situations that we may encounter with certain uses. And I think it's somewhat anti-master plan in terms of a larger vision, flexibility, and being open to different opportunities, different proposals. So for those reasons, I'll be voting no on this.
Mr. Schultz, do we need a roll call vote on this?
It'd be a good idea, yes.
Clerk will call the roll on this question.
Commissioner Stimson,
Yay?
Commissioner Ware,
Man, can I be last?
I'd be last.
Yes, yay.
Commissioner Aspinall,
Yay.
Commissioner Varga,
Yay.
Commissioner Brickner,
No.
Commissioner Conaghan,
No.
Commissioner Mantee,
Yay.
and Chair Trufflet.
Yay.
So, looks like 6-2.
Thank you. The motion passes. Next item on the agenda, amend planned unit development PUD 1 of 2015. Location is 28050 Grand River. Construction of freestanding and wall signs within a B3 General Business District and SP2 Special Purpose District. This is a setting for public hearing. This is Corwell Health, formerly known as Botsford Hospital. Is there a proponent?
Yes. There.
Nobody?
No, they're here.
Oh, here.
Hello. Oh my goodness. Good evening, everyone. I have some opening remarks, if that's all right.
She needs your name for the
I'm
record.
sorry. My name is Claire McCready. Got it. Okay. All right. Thank you very much for having us here today. We appreciate any opportunity to discuss this project with you. As I said, my name is Claire McCready, and I am the Senior Project Manager of Signworks of Michigan. We are a visual communications company, and this year marks 20 years in the sign business. Accompanying me today is our owner, Ann Frass, and also with us today is the President of Corwell Health Farmington Hills Hospital, Dirk Pronger. Thank you. Today I have the privilege of representing Corwell Health Farmington Hills Hospital located at 28050 Grand River Avenue for the PUD amendment to 1, document and legitimize the existing signage on the hospital campus as requested by members of the city, as well as 2, earn the allowance of 2 signs that do not currently comply with the existing ordinance. This includes 1 monument sign positioned at the front entrance drive and 1 main wall sign that communicates the new name of the hospital. These 2 signs are the main identifiers of the hospital for all visitors. The Corwell Health Farmington Hills Hospital was founded in 1965 with only 200 beds. Today it has 330 beds, 682 physicians, and 1,445 employees. The hospital is the largest employer in Farmington Hills. The healthcare industry is listed as one of the sectors that contributed to the 42% growth in sales and revenue within the city from 2012 to 2017. And the city's master plan sources their hospitals as one of the city's greatest strengths. Thank you again for the opportunity to be with you all today, and we look forward to discussing this with you and answering your questions.
Okay. Joe?
Right. So the question before you is, as you note on the agenda, scheduling a public hearing. I'll cut right to the heart of it for the purposes of scheduling the public hearing. When we have a request to change something in a PUD, the question becomes, is it a major or minor amendment? So in this case, they're proposing to amend the PUD to permit greater sign area and height. This is a PUD. Deviations from zoning ordinance standards are permitted via the development agreement. They can't be obtained by the Zoning Board of Appeals. So if we're going to be varying those standards, we have to amend the development agreement. The determination of staff is that it's a major amendment because it requires a change to the development agreement, which only council can make. And they have submitted an extensive sign package. Just to quickly summarize what they're proposing that deviates from ordinance standards. Replacement of the existing monument sign, which is 10 feet 8 inches tall and 7 feet wide. That's 74.67 square feet. With a new monument sign that'll be 12 feet tall and 6 feet wide. That's 72 square feet. Section 5.5 permits a maximum height of 6 feet and a maximum area of 32 square feet. So there's the deviation that's being requested for the ground sign. And then for the wall sign, they are proposing to replace a wall sign on the ground floor south elevation of the principal building. That current sign is 73.33 square feet. The applicant is proposing a replacement sign that's only 40.15 square feet. 25 square feet is what's permitted in the SP2 district per section 5.5. And so they'll still be over, but they actually are reducing the amount of deviation from the ordinance on that sign.
Anything else?
That's all. It's a fairly simple
Okay.
project.
Do you have anything else to add?
Well, we would appreciate the opportunity to discuss the need for signage, if that if this is the opportunity to do so. If not, then we can at the public hearing. I understand you have a lot to get to today. We have a lot prepared for you as well.
I'd love to hear it. We have a little bit of a busy agenda tonight, and you're going to be scheduling us for a public hearing November 21st. Charmaine?
I believe the motion says the next available meeting,
Make it.
most likely November 21st.
Dale?
I would move motion to set it for public hearing, but I would be curious in a short primer, rationale. For
Okay.
a little bit, a little brief.
Brief? Yes, absolutely.
You're welcome to do so.
Yes, thank you. Well, for starters, on the monument sign, it does currently sit at 10 feet tall, 8 inches high. However, the current design does not match the modernity and sleekness that the Corewell Health rebrand is going for, as well as it is a visibility issue. And we would like to stress the importance of this being a hospital and it being zoned 2 different zone districts and the only special purpose district within the city that we are aware of. And so that is a big part of it, as well as the wall sign. That is the only feasible part of the building that this can be installed upon, because as you can see, the building is constructed of mostly glass and metal. So this is the most structurally sound place to put this signage. We believe that Corewell Health Farmington Hills Hospital is much more descriptive than just Beaumont. And being this is the main wall sign, we want it to be beautiful, but we also want it to be visible because there is a parking lot in front of it and cars would block it if it were the 25 square feet that the city allows. And I invite my associates to add anything if they would like to at this time.
I'm satisfied. I think visibility is very important, so.
Very important.
Absolutely. So,
Anyone else? Joe, you want?
As pointed out, the main point was whether or not we see this as a major or a minor change. And it appears that the signs are not really any bigger than what's already been approved. It is by far the most important sign to see in the city. This is where the hospital is. I do not see this in any way as a major change.
Mr. Schultz?
Still new deviations from the sign ordinance, so we're going to need the public hearing and,
Okay.
yeah.
so I move
Absolutely.
to set it for a public hearing, next available meeting.
Second.
Been moved and second. Discussion? Okay. Dale? You going to say something else? No. Okay. All those in favor of the motion to set for public hearing at the next available public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Check with staff. It could be November, but it might be December, so.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your time. Very
Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is PUD Plan 2 of 2024, including Site Plan 56824. The location is the south side of 13 Mile, just west of Middle Belt Road. This is for construction of multiple family dwelling within an RA1 district. This also is a scheduled public hearing. Mr. Steve Schaefer? No, you're not Steve, you're.
Spencer Schaefer. Steve's there in the audience, my father.
Yes, right.
All right, good evening, planning commissioners. First of all, Charmaine, how am I able to put this up on this?
Just give the signal to the folks in the control room and they'll switch it over for you. There you go.
Oh, I'm looking at, okay, so it's on both screens. I just want to make sure I can shift this real easy. All right, perfect. Good evening, planning commissioners. My name's Spencer Schaefer, and I'm with Schaefer Development. I'm joined here by my father, Steve, and my brother, Aaron, who will be making the next presentation we have here for another item. So you're going to hear a lot from the Schaefers tonight. So we'll do our best to be informative, but, you know, get through the motions as swiftly as possible. As many of you are aware, our offices are located here in the city of Farmington Hills. We're located right on Northwestern Middle Belt Road. Actually, my brother and I do reside here in the community as well, so we feel like we got a lot of stake here. And, you know, we travel by this site, you know, every day on our way to work. So it's very important for us to make sure that we're developing something of good character for the broader community. So the site here is located on the south side of 13 Mile between Middle Belt Road and Orchard Lake Road. It is a single planned unit development, but there are 2 different residential communities. In blue, we're calling this development the Mulberry Way townhouses. This is going to feature a 2-story for-sale townhouse. And to the left, it's a property that's currently owned by Baptist Manor, directly adjacent to Baptist Manor. They are calling it the Tabernacle, and it will feature a 1-story ranch community that will be rented to active adult individuals. We've spoken with the folks at Baptist Manor. We're actually joined here by Ryan Doley and Ryan Gillespie, who are 2 of the principals over there, and I believe they already do have a lot of interest in this community amongst residents that they have at the existing Baptist Manor community. So we have 7 parcels here in total. I'm not going to bother with the addresses. We're directly east of the Baptist Manor facility. To our north is Westgate Subdivision, and to the south is Holly Hill Farms. We've had the opportunity to meet with the HOA representatives as well as neighborhoods through HOA meetings and other community meetings on multiple occasions. I believe actually 7 or 8 times in total. So a lot of the neighbors who are present here, we've had the opportunity to meet them at one or several meetings, and I believe everybody, for the most part, is very familiar with what we're proposing. A lot of the modifications that we have made to the plan throughout the process was based off of the feedback that we've solicited, specifically for the neighbors of Holly Hills, ensuring that we have a large setback, to their subdivision. One of the things that we have committed to, and I'm sure will be memorialized as part of the PUD agreement, is that we're going to have a permanent open space preservation buffer that gives surety and certainty to the residents that that area will remain as a permanently preserved tree buffer that ensures that there's very good natural separation between the 2 uses. So on April 18th, we had the opportunity to meet with the Planning Commission. We had unanimous approval for our qualifications for PUD approval. Our plan has not changed substantially. It is, in essence, very similar to the plan that was approved at that time. I will highlight some of the changes here on latter slides, but what we've really done since that April 18th meeting was assist the folks at Baptist Manor in picking an architect and designing a floor plan for them. We had everything sort of set for our townhouse community, so we've been really leading the charge with Novak and Fraus, who's our civil engineer, to complete the site plans, and then we've shared those plans with the neighbors for feedback. So just as a quick reminder, the development still features 76 total units. There will be 40 for-sale 2-story townhouses as part of the Mulberry Park development, which is situated on the east side of the community. And Baptist Manor will feature 36 1-story age-restricted rental homes. One of the things that was brought forth in the review letter was building heights. We didn't explicitly state our building heights. The new master plan district actually allows for buildings that are between 1 to 3 stories in height. So what we're proposing is going to be less than what's allowed under the master plan. But in terms of height for our 2-story units, that's going to have 27 feet high to the midpoint of the roof. The ordinance, I believe, allows 30 feet, and for the ranches, that's going to be a maximum of 17 feet. So both of those do fall within the confines of the ordinance, and we do not need to seek any waivers in that regard. So just talking a little bit about the zoning and the future land use. As it stands right now, the property is zoned RA1, which only permits single-family detached housing. It is master planned. This was actually in the prior future land use plan as single-family residential. In the new future land use plan, it's flex residential, which really wants to see a product that's an attached product that's clustered, that offers housing solutions for that missing middle, which is anybody from younger individuals, which we believe are going to be attracted by the townhouse community. It's going to be an opportunity to get more young students in the community, which I think is very needed from the school district. And then the folks at Baptist Manor, that's going to be an age-targeted community, so it's really going to give people the option to downsize but age in place within the Farmington Hills community. So here I have a side-by-side of the 2 plans. The plan on the left is what was approved on April 18th. The plan on the right is what's in front of you for consideration this evening. One of the major changes I think we feel there may possibly be a need for a third stormwater detention basin that's located in the southeast corner of the property. But we are working closely with our civil engineer as we get into the engineering stages, and we are able to more formally evaluate our stormwater detention needs. We're actually looking to make some alterations to that building all the way on the east side, potentially shift it down a little bit so we can widen the size of that pond. Another thing, Mr. Cabrera's review letter, who's the city engineer, had asked that we strongly consider one point of ingress and egress that's directly aligned with the Westgate subdivision. So we are going to onboard a traffic consultant and study the feasibility of potentially a boulevard entrance. We think that that would be a wise decision, so long as we have the data to support that that will be acceptable from a traffic safety and management perspective. Speaking on that note, we think a single entrance aligned with Westgate is going to be a lot better to address both of those items. Baptist Manor obviously has a signal to the west. They have a curb cut to the west. So, we're going to work closely with our consultants and with staff to ensure that we're proposing, the best means of access into this community. In terms of our setbacks are essentially a mirror of what we had approved as part of the PUD qualifications meeting. We did make some changes to the Baptist Manor footprint. It's actually a slightly wider footprint, less deep footprint than what we had proposed initially. So you can see, I believe we have a couple less building runs, but it is the same amount of units. Another thing that was brought forth in the review letter, we didn't have or I think it was buried somewhere in the plan, a lot surface, a lot coverage ratio. The maximum allowed is 25%. What we're proposing is 21%. So it's under that maximum requirement. So this is just a more blown up version of the site plan. One of the key things I want to talk about here, and we have met with engineering multiple times. We actually met with Mr. Cabrera yesterday, and we spoke with the fire marshal yesterday, but this is more of an engineering related comment. Our buildings are going to have a pitched roof, so water's going to drain off into the front yard, water's going to drain off into the rear yard. What we're actually looking to do is tying in that gutter system, whether it's through an edge drain or some other type of mechanism to ensure that that water is channeled off of the roof back into the main stormwater system. Mr. Cabrera said if we do that, he's going to allow us to just do a swale in the rear yard. So we're really trying to figure out ways to minimize the development impact in those rear yards so we can preserve as significant of a tree buffer as possible. I have a landscape plan here. I think the residents will like it a lot that shows that existing tree line, and we're really preserving a vast majority of that tree line. But, we'll address that here shortly. Another item I want to talk about, it was brought forth in one of the review letters. You can see sort of that dashed line around the southeast portion of the property. We think there may be a need for select retaining wall. Where that one building is between those two basins, there's going to need to be a pretty substantial amount of fill, I think between 6 to 8 feet there. But rather than having to propose a retaining wall, we're looking at potentially doing walkout basements in those areas, which is going to allow us to sort of manage that grade naturally and hopefully vastly reduce or eliminate the need for a majority of that retaining wall. So just a couple of points I wanted to highlight. Another thing, there were several additional items in Mr. Cabrera's letter. I actually addressed them. There's about 4 of them. I'll address them line by line, but I wanted to show this plan. Yesterday, we actually had our in-house engineer prepare a quick sketch that addressed 2 main items. So the first one I want to talk about is in the southwest corner of the property. Neither fire or engineering were I don't want to say fan, that's not the right word, but they didn't feel that they could support that T intersection, that T stub that we had in the corner. So we looked to make a minor change to a plan. I think this is going to be much better from a fire standpoint, a life safety standpoint. If there is an issue, it's going to, eliminate the need for, a fire truck to have to get into that area and then back up and potentially have, a difficult turning movement. So, we've made some modifications to the plan to comply with that request of engineering. Another thing, too, we sort of have to analyze the feasibility of this more, but now we understand what engineering is looking for. We're going to engage with a traffic consultant, and the hope is before we are placed on a public hearing, which would likely occur in November. We'll have the results of that traffic study. We'll be able to share it with staff. We'll be able to talk about it with engineering and make sure everybody is comfortable and acceptable of what we're ultimately proposing as part of our plans. So here, I wanted to share a landscape exhibit. Farmington Hills does have a pretty robust tree replacement ordinance. There are, some trees that, we're going to have to take down as part of this development. But you can see here all of the trees that sort of are in those darker circles. That's what we are planning as part of our development. I wish I had the number in front of me, Aaron. I don't know if you can check, but it's a couple hundred trees that we're going to be planting. Yeah. So we have 200 trees that we're actually going to be planting on site. I think the requirement's for 234. Hard for us to really figure out any area to put another 34 trees. So we'll have to work with staff, and we'd look to do a donation to the township's tree replacement fund. But one major item I want to highlight for the residents, you can see that red line right there. That red line, it was sort of hard to see that shaded area. That's the existing tree canopy. So you can see that we have some trees in the darker circle. I'm actually going to try to zoom in here, that we are proposing within that canopy. So these are areas where trees have fallen over the years or have been, cut down or taken down, just where there are gaps. So our goal, our intention is to, make that buffer as robust as possible. We're not huge proponents of doing a fence. There is a substantial amount of grade out here, and in order to put in a fence, it's going to require us to do a lot of earth moving, which is ultimately going to take down more trees. So we think that, this is a very good avenue to we have to plant all these trees on site anyway. So let's figure out a way to, make sure that we're putting them in the most strategic locations. We take pride in our landscape plans always. I love going by the developments that my dad did. I know my father's done, 6, maybe 8 subdivisions, in the Farmington Hills community and a handful of commercial developments. And it's always nice going out there during the fall and, seeing all the different tree colors. So, we have a lot of good species in here, species that, we feel are strong, are resistant to, some of the more temperate winters that we're seeing. So, we think this is a good blend of landscaping that'll produce a nice aesthetic effect all year round. So here, we didn't share a rendering, I believe, as part of our PUD qualifications, but this gives you a representative elevation of what the townhouse product is going to look like. The folks at Baptist Manor, they're still working with the architect to develop a formal design, but I do have a representative picture here. Oops. Right here, this gives you an idea, at least from an elevation perspective, of what the ranches will look like. One of the things I will say, because we're doing this as a joint PUD, we want to make sure that the architectural color palettes, the materials that we're using, they don't match, but they're symbiotic. They're in unison. So we're going to make sure that there's good continuity between the two uses. There's good similarity, but we obviously want to make sure there is some nice differentiation in there as well. And then this is an example, not a requirement, but I wanted to give you guys a taste and a feel for what the interior of these townhouse units will look like. So the last thing I want to do here is talk about what I felt were a couple of the more marquee comments in the review letter. This was actually from the Giffords-Webster review letter. It talked about the request for us to prepare a traffic study. There was a minor clarification. They wanted us to compare the traffic that we would generate vis-a-vis the traffic that could be generated under an RA1 use. So I believe that's 26 units versus the 76 units we're proposing. Obviously, what we're proposing meets the goals, meets the intentions, meets the objectives of the master plan. But one thing I want to point out is the Baptist Manor team, their development, it's a 55-plus development. It's a development of predominantly active adults, seniors, who have very different traffic patterns than individuals of single-family homes, than the likely individuals of our townhouses will have. So we will make sure, to put that data together, and as part of that data, we're going to, ultimately look into whether, Mr. Kubira's comment, which stated we prefer one entrance, ensuring that, that's warranted and it doesn't cause any harms to the residents of our development or adjacent residents. Dimensional standards, I think I stated both of these already. So lot coverage ratio is 22%, and the height of both of the products that we are proposing are below the maximums allowed. And then we're going into Giffords Webster letter, but one of the, there were two comments here. The second one being that engineering wanted to see our entrance aligned with Westgate. So that revised plan that we put together does show an entrance in alignment with Westgate. I think, we want to do that. We want to comply with that request from staff. The only other thing we really need to look at is whether we can do one entrance or if we potentially need to do two. We think one's probably going to be okay with the use that we have here. I've preliminarily talked with Fleece and Vandenbrink. They're a very reputable traffic engineer. We do use them on a lot of our communities, but we're going to make sure we put together the formal data that justifies that. Another request that was made by engineering is, can we put a stub to the east? Now, we looked extensively at the 4 single-family lots that are adjacent to us to the east, just so you can understand how it works. There's Baptist Manor. Comprehensively between our PUD, there are 7 lots. After our 7 lots, there are 4 more acreage single-family lots before you get to Cove Creek. If anybody's been by there, there is a substantial amount of topography. We looked at trying to assemble those 4 properties. One of them actually earlier this year, February of this year, sold to an individual. I spoke with the broker for that individual. Their intention is to build a single-family house. A couple of the other owners I reached out to, they're either not ready to sell or they had very high economic ranges in mind. And it's personally my thought process as a developer, the likelihood of these parcels being developed for a similar type of use is probably very low in the future due to some of the development difficulties. On top of that, we're doing a development with private roadways. It would be our preference not to have to do a stub there, not to have, additional traffic put on there, because we're going to have a homeowners association who's managing it, and ultimately it's going to be our residents who have to pay for any type of improvements to that roadway in the future. There was a comment on waste management. We're going to have trash receptacles, so I think that addresses that. And then in Mr. Caburo's letter, he asked if we had basements. As I stated earlier, we may look to strategically do some walkout basements so we can get rid of the need for the retaining walls, but the branches are going to be slab on grade, and the vast majority of the townhouses will be slab on grade too. I already addressed comment 6. That was sort of a repeat, so I'm not going to address that. Same thing goes where there with comment 8. Again, we're going to perform the traffic analysis, and we're going to work with staff and ultimately make sure what we're proposing is in alignment with that study and what staff would like to see. And here I just highlighted again what those 2 changes that we'd be looking to make would look like. So we have had conversations with planning staff and engineering staff. A request was, as long as these changes, are included as conditions in some form or promises that we will address, that they would, permit this. I don't want to put words in staff's mouth, but my understanding of it, based on the conversations my father has had with staff, that they would, let us move forward to schedule a public hearing so long as we made these changes and formally submitted these changes within the next week. So with that, want to appreciate everybody here for this time, the opportunity to make a presentation for our planned unit development once again, and we'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Brickner?
The substitute plan that you were showing to make the, get rid of the T, are you cutting down the number of units in the Baptist Manor side?
Actually, the amount of units stays the same. So this unit right here that I'm highlighting over, and the prior plan was a 5-plex, now it's a 3-plex. This was a 4-plex, now it's a 6-plex. So I didn't mention it, but one of the added benefits here on this unit that I'm highlighting over, this only had a 60-foot setback to Holly Hill Farms. now it has, you know, at minimum, I think we had a 72-foot setback, but it's obviously substantially greater here. So, you know, this maybe gives us an opportunity to save some vegetation, do more limited grading, or potentially plant some additional trees in that area.
Yes. Marissa.
Thank you. I appreciate all of your detail in your presentation, as well as including the rendering of the architectural design. Are you and Baptist Manor using two different architects?
That's correct. We've hooked up Baptist Manor with a local architect, Bogarts Design, Alexander Bogarts. We've used their firm on multiple occasions. They're a very reputable firm. It's going to be a different architect from the townhouses, but the illustrative representative rendering that I submitted you for the townhouse, it's going to look very closely to that. We may, you know, change the color palette a little bit, but beyond that, what you see, it's going to be similar to what you get.
Okay, thank you. And then I see the note here that the ranches and townhomes will be developed in separate phases. So is the timing of construction or the phasing of the two projects separate, different?
So there's going to be master development on the horizontal side. So with the townhouses, we have to agree to all of this in writing with the folks at Baptist Manor, which we're going to start if we, you know, solicit good feedback here at this meeting tonight. But the intention would be there'd be a joint development agreement to ensure all the horizontal development, the grading, the roadways and such, that got put in. If things go according to plan, we should be in a position where we can put a shovel in the ground by summer, fall of next year. I believe it would be both of our intentions to start with the development at that time, but they will be two separate developments done by two separate builders, at least for the vertical portion of the development.
Okay, thank you.
Joe?
So at least some of this development is located where someone else proposed some development recently. And my biggest issue was the buffer. Can we call that a conservation area?
We
are
are
you
actually
calling it?
willing to do do we say a conservation easement or tree preservation area? We can talk with the city attorney and see what the preference is. Yeah.
If I'm interpreting correctly, it's 60 feet on the drawings. Well, I think you.
So this actually right here shows the setback. This is the setback from the unit. So now that we understand that engineering.
It says 60 feet, now that goes right up to where the dotted line is that's
Yes.
all the way across? And that, I'm just checking, that dotted line represents the limit of the tree conservation area, or whatever you want to call it, right?
The one thing I want to mention as a caveat, we did talk about with the residents, 50 to 55 feet, possibly up to 60 feet. Once we go through the formal design engineering and figure out what the width of that culvert needs to be, we will commit to a specific buffer at that point. But our intention is everything that's outside of that storm sewer, we put in a tree conservation easement or something of the like.
Granted, and I understand. What I was going to point out was that then that only leaves 12 or 14 feet for the condo owners, if you will. And condo owners often think they own more than, that 14 feet is longer than what 14 feet is and all that. And I was going to ask if, you know, what kind of punishments would be included in the condominium agreement or some such thing. I'd like to see some language, maybe well beyond my concern, but I think it's very important. I have looked at the site before. The residents have an awful lot of trees right there. They're going to miss them. I want to make sure they really have those trees, okay? And I truly understand your talk about the culvert and how that would reduce the amount of retention area and things like that. And I truly appreciate that. So, not a problem. Totally different topic. You're working with Baptist Manor You're going to put a bunch of old people in here. And I'm an old person. And old people not only want to walk, they need to walk. Even the ones who don't want to walk are forcing themselves to walk, okay? I don't understand why there isn't a sidewalk going from the senior development over to the Baptist Manor area just for people for health reasons to walk around. And I'm just throwing that out there at this juncture. That's all. You should talk to them about that. Well, it's not, well, first of all, you're not up here, so you're not supposed to be talking. But I'll pretend I didn't hear that, but I will go ahead and say that as a walker, it's not a lot of fun to walk on a mile road. It's a lot more fun to just walk on a sidewalk that's put between some units.
Yeah.
You know?
No, it's a good idea, and we'll
Very simple
look
thing.
into
I
the
thought I'd throw
feasibility
it
of
out.
that, yeah.
That's all I have.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes, Kristen.
Sorry, just Ada Gumberg. The original plan makes sense to me with the two entrances. You know, you kind of have two developments there and you're keeping them separate. When you go down to the one entrance across from Westgate, it's a little confusing to me because you do have the two developments, one being single family, one being older residents, all coming in through the same entrance. And if you have two different architectural designs, but yeah, one entrance, that's confusing to me. That's all.
Anything else? Ready for a motion? Make it?
Are they asking for another preliminary approval?
This is scheduled for
Public hearing.
I'll move to set the public hearing.
Is there support?
Support.
So moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Okay,
Thank you.
next.
It's this one. Where's this one? You have the wrong one. That's the next one.
That's the next one? Okay.
I feel like it's our B'nai Mitzvah all over again when we were 13, because I went first, and then Spencer went right after me, so the fact that we're going back to back, it's been a little over 10 years since that, so just wanted to bring that up. Good evening, Planning Commissioners. It is a pleasure to be in front of you this evening. My name is, I'm with Schaefer Development. As you know, we're longstanding residents in the city of Farmington Hills, so anytime we have the opportunity to bring a development in front of you brings us great pleasure. So again, thank you for the opportunity this evening. So I want to talk real quick about why we're here this evening. We are here for you to consider our qualification for PUD option for the Yusuf property and our redevelopment vision for a premier for-sale owner-occupied townhome development. Similar to our project on 13 Mile that Spencer just presented, our goal is to get more of a first-time home buyer demographic into these types of units. This includes, but is not limited to, recent graduates, singles, young couples, or families who are looking to establish roots in the city of Farmington Hills. Again, the fancy buzzword everybody is using is missing middle housing. We envision that many young families with school-age children will be attracted to this proposed community. Just to give you a quick understanding of where the property is, we are situated on the north side of 12 Mile Road, roughly a quarter mile west of Middle Belt Road. Directly to the north of us, we abut residential, mainly the Wood Creek residence and some larger single-family lots. Directly to the east are individuals we have spoken with, the Levy family, who's directly on our shared eastern property line, as well as the Cole family, who bought the property next door. To the south of us, we have the Timbercrest subdivision, which is some slightly higher density single-family housing compared to Wood Creek and some of the other uses to the north. And then finally, to the west, we have AIM Academy, which is a school use. Zooming in real quickly, we've got a handful of more commercial uses as you traverse west down 12 Mile Road. Church use, the Sunoco gas station, that new Sheetz gas station that is going underway, as well as a medical dental office. And then on the south side, 12 Mile closer to Middle Belt, you've got your neighborhood commercial use there. So real quickly, talking about the use of property, it's just a hair above 4.55 acres in size. We're zoned RA1A residential, which you can see here to the zoning map on the left. And then to the right here, we are zoned single-family residential. Prior to officially submitting any plans to the city, we really wanted to conduct neighborhood outreach with the HOA and the residents directly abutting the use of property. For any redevelopment opportunity we pursue, it is vital that we start by engaging with surrounding residents to solicit their feedback so that we can incorporate their suggestions into our plans. We first started by meeting with Mr. Hank Morawski, who's the president of the Wood Creek HOA. We met with Mr. Morawski on numerous occasions in May as well as August of this year to share our plans and give him adequate time to address our comments and feedback. As you will see later in this presentation, Concept Plan 2.0 features a far more prominent setback to the northern property line, over 110 feet additional setback to the north, because that was very important to Wood Creek, is preserving that foliage along the creek. I forget what the creek is called, but on that more northern part of our property, we do bisect part of that creek, and there's quite a bit of fall. So we wanted to make sure to stay out of that area as much as possible and keep that mature, serene vegetation that has grown there for quite some time. In addition, we've been in conversations with the Levy and Cole families, who are our easterly neighbors. Based on their feedback, our concept plan, which is the new one, 2.0, features a larger setback to Mr. Levy's residence to the east, and we're going to work to plant additional native tree species in the areas there are some gaps. We also did have the opportunity to meet with Headmaster Earls, who is the headmaster for AIM Academy, the school used to our west. He is amenable in theory in granting a Knox box access to the property, so that would allow for two means of life safety into the AIM property as well as our property. As it currently sits, AIM High School only has one entrance into the school, and we have the one entrance for our property. So we'd be looking to do, again, a secondary means of access via a Knox box for life safety and fire access. And that was a big thing that was in the interoffice correspondence that Mr. Cabrera and engineering put together, as well as the fire marshal. And we can, of course, talk about that in a little greater detail when I move to the site plan. So on August 29th, we met with the city of Farmington Hills to officially submit our qualification for PUD option, as well as share our plans and materials so everybody could be brought up to speed. I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with this, but the Road Commission for Oakland County, I'll just refer to them as Road Commission, is looking to expand this section of 12 Mile, add a third lane and a dedicated left turn access for 12 and Middle Belt. My mom used to have an office right there. I know how bad that intersection can get. So the fact that, you know, Road Commission is stepping up their game to widen that road is something we see as a great benefit to this project. And in the review letter, there were talks about, you know, providing, again, road stubs to the west and to the east. Our original concept plan, you'll see it in a second, only had a cul-de-sac. With this newest concept plan, we have a T roadway designed, so we do have vehicular access to the west and to the east. This is a little bit of a sidebar, but we were trying to put together a larger assemblage with the use of property, the Levy property to the east, and then the Cole property further east. Unfortunately, you know, due to the economics Mr. Levy paid for his home, we couldn't, quite frankly, get the numbers to work. But the stub is designed in a way so should those properties be developed 50, 100 years from now, it's designed in a way where you can still get some really nice units that back up to the creek and where all that topography falls. And it's designed in a way that can accommodate vehicular access in the future. So this is the first concept plan that we shared, but we, you know, scrapped it to the side in favor of concept plan 2.0 based on the conversations we had with the residents and Wood Creek. As you can see here, we're showing a 50-foot buffer from that northernmost townhouse unit all the way to the northern property line. The Wood Creek HOA did kindly request that we look at reducing density in order to provide as great of a buffer to the north as possible. And then Mr. Levy had asked, listen, my house is kind of where that detention basin is, as shown. If those two rows of townhouses on the eastern side of the roadway, if you could shift them a little further west, just so that my kids and I have more mature foliage between us and your use, that would be greatly appreciated. Those two changes are, you'll see those in Concept Plan 2.0, but again, this just gives you an idea of how the site plan looks in response to all the mature vegetation around the property. So again, what we're looking to do here now is the original plan had 30 24-foot wide units. This is now down 28. So we lost 2 units, and we're looking to do some slightly larger units on all the end caps. It's a 28-foot unit, more catered toward, it could be catered toward an empty nester demographic, but again, our goal is to provide, attainable housing really for that first-time home buyer demographic, as well as the 24-foot townhouses, which you see in the middle of the building runs. We are showing an additional 10 feet or 60 feet total from the shared eastern property line to the back of the units. So again, that was something that Mr. Levy had expressed, and we were able to accommodate that. And then in addition to the north, as a result of doing this T-shaped roadway that has stubs to both our neighbors, we provided an additional 110 feet where we can keep that natural, mature hardscape, and that's where we'd be looking to also do some type of common area amenity as well, because that's really the prettiest part of the site is back here in this area. And again, this just gives you an idea of how that revised concept plan fits in. And then this is a comparison of the two. You can see that, we've got about, I think here we had about 21%. We had about, 0.9 acres or about 21% open space on the initial plan set. On this newest plan set, we've got about 1.25 acres, close to 29%, so 6% increase in open space. Now, I wanted to hop into the review letters, really the real meat and the potatoes of the review letter we received, just a few days ago. This talks about the access streets, a T-shaped road stubbed to both property lines. Engineering and fire had expressed concerns about the design. If this site is qualified for a PUD, discussions should be held with these agencies prior to a final site plan. We're more than happy to discussing this further with engineering. It's really our collective belief that since we're providing, a Knox box as well as secondary means of ingress and egress to the west to AIM Academy, that really resolves the bulk of that concern that was brought up by staff. But of course, we can talk about that more behind the scenes should we receive PUD qualification this evening. In addition, yesterday, my father as well as brother were able to chase down Mr. Cabrera while he was here at City Hall, and we did share this revised plan set with him, and he was okay in theory. He just said, listen, let's have another call once you get PUD qualification. Me and the fire marshal will thoroughly review this and get back to you. But we feel the fact that we're providing that secondary access to the west with the Knox box really meets the spirit and intent of what was being asked for in that letter. Another thing here, I'll pay attention to the part in bold, is the number of units proposed on this site exceeds the number of single-family units that could be built under RA1A 28 versus 6. Planning Commission may consider whether a traffic study is necessary to project demand from a larger development than is typically permitted in this location. Again, we did learn, back in August that, 12 Mile is being expanded, and if we are to receive favorable qualification this evening, we will reach out to Road Commission as soon as possible so that they can furnish us plans with 12 Mile, and we can make sure that we're designing an entrance that provides, the adequate ingress and egress, as well as Road Commission can factor in the changes that may have to be made for this proposed development now rather than break it apart when the road does go in later this summer. So we'll, of course, be on top of that should we receive favorable qualification this evening. There was a question regarding the height of the building run or of the units. Somewhere in the review letter, it was mentioned that these were 41 feet tall. Not sure where that number was derived. Again, we're looking at about 27 feet, Spencer said in his presentation, but it's exactly 26 feet, 6 inches from the midpoint of the roof all the way to the bottom of the unit. So again, RA1 is 30, or RA1A is 30 feet. We're at about 27, so that is a moot point now because we're in compliance. This gives you an understanding of the rendering here. The larger units, the 28-foot wide units are on the end. It's kind of hard to see that because this is a 2D rendering, but if you see where those window treatments are, all the way on the end, the entrances are a little more offset and behind the units. So rest assured is a dedicated way to get into those units. It's just, there's a little bit of a sidewalk you trek to get to your front door. These renderings are also very similar to, what Spencer showed in his earlier presentation. But again, these are all going to be 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom units with a 2-car garage. The larger units do permit a 3rd bedroom. And then in the smaller 24-foot units, it's 2 units and a den, or 2 bedrooms and a den. And that den can be converted into a 3rd bedroom. So with that, I want to thank you for the time this evening. I know you're probably sick of hearing the Schaefers. We've been here for quite some time, but if you have any questions whatsoever, I'm more than happy to answer those.
Barry?
Well, I saw the Plan 1 had a cul-de-sac, and Plan 2 had a T, and I don't know that the fire department will be too thrilled with the T, because it'll be hard to get them, you're going to have a turning radius for them to turn around back.
That was something that was brought up in the review letter. I can have my dad talk about it quickly in just a moment, but at the end of the day, it was fire and engineering. It was more important to fire and engineering that we do provide stub streets to the west and to the east for future development. That's why we decided to make the change to Concept Plan 2.0, as you see. Again, we have had conversations with AIM, whether it is a Knox box or maybe even making it into, a dedicated secondary access that doesn't have a chain. Maybe it's something that's, completely open 24/7. That is something that would warrant, additional conversation, because again, that's AIM's decision, not ours. But I think if that was something we were to pursue, that's a way we can, qualm fire and engineering's concern about being able to easily traverse the community. But if you have anything else you want to add, Dad,
I had an
go
opportunity
ahead.
to talk to the fire marshal, so the access with AIM will be an active access, so if the truck does have to go down, they'll be able to get out through a Knox box onto the AIM property, or vice versa. If the AIM access was blocked, they could come in that way and get in. They thought that was a definite positive. As far as the dead end to the east, we'll address that with fire, and we can decide whether or not a cul-de-sac is going to be more appropriate or this configuration. But
they won't, if they can't get in and out, they won't approve it.
no, well, they'll be able to get in. They could take a left, go in the Knox box, get into AIM, and then go out. So there is a way for them without having to back up and turn around.
But you've already talked to them about doing something like that.
I'm sorry?
You already talked to the fire department about having an exit off of at the end of the T.
Yes.
Okay, because if they can't get in and out, they're not going to.
Yeah, they're not going to allow it. I mean, if these were just dead ends, it wouldn't be acceptable.
Right.
There has to be a way out, and that's why we're examining either this route or a cul-de-sac.
Anyone else? Joe?
I just have to say that fire trucks do have an R gear. I just have to say it, sorry.
Well, let me
But to say that they cannot get out, they
Let
can.
Let me address that. It is the policy of the fire department not to back up at a scene because you never know who's behind you. And knock on wood, there have been no accidents with fire trucks this year so far versus Detroit that's had 93 fire truck accidents. So it is very important that they can go forward and not backward. Now, did I ever back up a truck when I was doing it? Yes, I did. But just that our remark is, there's a reason.
It's just more accurate to say that the danger inherent in backing up, as opposed to saying they cannot back up.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. Okay, anyone else? Are we ready for a motion?
Well, don't we need to hear from staff?
Steve? I'm sorry, I forgot you guys, you're so quiet.
I can take you through the qualification requirements here. So They are requesting PUD qualification tonight. He's already gone through a great deal of the review comments that we had, but I'll go through the qualification portion of my letter, because that's what we're here for tonight, and I'll touch on a couple of things about the concept plan.
If I may, I don't believe we ever received
Agreed.
Now, where's your letter?
their letter.
We don't have your letter.
I don't have it either.
I've been,
I just thought I'd let you know.
Oh.
You know, that we're not following along as you go through.
Okay, well.
Okay? You can
I
still
have-
just hit the highlights.
I
if
have
you
an
want.
extra copy if you want
Oh,
to hand
you
it.
get so lucky.
There's quite a few of us.
Okay, well, I
Yeah,
wasn't aware you didn't have my letter.
not in our package, and it wasn't what was on here.
Boy,
was
it's
in the
like 100
electronic packet.
pages.
That's how I read it.
So, yeah, we're on a site that's zoned RA1A.
It's,
It's 4.5 acres roughly, a little more. He already talked about the adjacent properties, but I'll just quickly note that it is all single-family homes, except for to the south, where there's a single-family home and a church, and then a private school to the west. And the site's accessed from 12 Mile. Looking at 28 units of two-story attached townhouses and 8 buildings, 4 of which include 4 units and 2 of which include 2 units. The units all have 2-car garages. You've got that T-shaped access road, stubbed to both property lines. He has addressed some of the engineering and fire discussions. I'm sure there'll be a few more, but I won't belabor it as it's already been addressed this evening. So the Planning Commission can make a determination that the site qualifies for a PUD based on a set of criteria that's embodied in section 3.20.2 of our zoning ordinance. The first of those is more of a general statement. The PUD option may be effectuated in any zoning district. This, of course, is in a zoning district, so the second item is that the use of the option shall not be for the sole purpose of avoiding the applicable zoning requirements. Any permission given for any activity or building or use shall not normally permitted shall result in an improvement to the public health, safety, and welfare in the area affected. So the proposed use, which is townhomes, is not generally permitted in the RA1A district. This proposed use may be considered as a deviation from the ordinance as part of the PUD. Density, as proposed, is consistent with the RC1 district. The next standard is that the PUD shall not be utilized in situations where the same land use objectives can be accomplished by the application of conventional zoning provisions or standards. Problems or constraints presented by applicable zoning provisions shall be identified in the PUD application. Asserted financial problems shall be substantiated with appraisals of the property as currently regulated and as proposed to be regulated. So they are proposing density consistent with the RC1 district. Rezoning to RC1 may not be appropriate for this site due to inconsistencies with the future land use map and the master plan. The site is master planned for single-family development in the 2024 master plan at a low density consistent with the RA1A and RA1B districts. The plan unit development option may be effectuated only when the proposed land use will not materially add service and facility loads beyond those contemplated in the future land use plan, unless the proponent can demonstrate to the sole satisfaction of the city that such added loads will be accommodated or mitigated by the proponent as part of the plan unit development. The pending expansion of 12 Mile has been addressed already. The number of units proposed by the site does clearly exceed the number of single-family units that could be built under RA1A zoning, 28 versus 6. The PC may consider whether a traffic study is necessary to project demand from a larger development than typically permitted in this location. I will note it's 22 additional units onto a mile road. That is not generally considered to be something that's going to generate a huge volume of traffic over and above what would normally be permitted. E is broken down into a few components, so the planned unit development must meet, at a minimum, one of the following 8 objectives of the city. The applicant provided and highlighted responses to 4 of the PUD objectives. I'm going to focus on those 4. Number one, to permanently preserve open space or natural features because of their exceptional characteristics or because they can provide a permanent transition or buffer between land uses. They are specifically highlighting the northern portion of the site, which is reserved for open space and a detention basin, and that design was chosen to separate the units from single-family development to the north. They have highlighted item 3 to accept dedication or set aside open space areas in perpetuity. The applicant cites permanent buffers along the northern and eastern property lines. Item 4, to provide alternative uses for parcels which can provide transition buffers to residential areas. The applicant is positing that the development would provide a transition between single-family housing and the school use to the west. And then number 5 is the other one that is highlighted in their narrative, to guarantee the provision of a public improvement which could not otherwise be required that would further the public health, safety, or welfare, protect existing or future uses from the impact of proposed use, or alleviate an existing or potential problem related to public facilities. So the applicant is primarily citing the dedication of the large area in the north of the site as open space, among some other things, for that standard. And then finally, the last standard of PUD qualification is that the PUD shall not be allowed solely as a means of increasing density or as a substitute for a variance request. Such objectives should be pursued through the normal zoning process by requesting a zoning change or variance. So they are seeking an increase in density, but the proposed use, of course, is not generally permitted in the underlying district, so they don't seem to be solely requesting the PUD to avoid a variance. A few things about the conceptual plan. Of course, we're not making a decision on a site plan this evening, but I did just want to note a couple of things. I've done a little density calculation there, showing some consistency with the RC1 district. There was some noted flexibility in the presentation on the use of dens as potential bedrooms and things that might somewhat change those numbers. So there kind of would be riding the line between RC1 and RC2 in that case. But as presented, it appears to be in line with RC1. We did note the master plan designates this area as single-family low density. It's not part of a special planning area. The building height was addressed, so it does not appear that they are seeking any deviations from the dimensional standards of the RA1A district at this point. They're meeting all the setbacks, building heights. I didn't see a specified lot coverage, but I assume that we'll get that on the final PUD plan. And then they are meeting, parking requirements, and we'll get into things like landscaping and screening at final PUD. But as far as relief sought from ordinance standards, it's really a matter of the use, the attached single family at the RC1 density. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yes, I'm sorry.
So we're here tonight to decide whether or not they meet the qualifications for a PUD.
That is correct.
All right, and so they have put out 4. One is to permanently preserve open space. 2 is dedicate or set aside open space. I'm going to jump to 4 and say to preserve the provision of open space, okay? The third one was to provide a buffer with a school. And seeing as schools are always often right next to residential property, it's a hard one for me to get to. Mm-hmm. So to me, it comes down to they're going to preserve open space. And that is the basis for this. And I'm good with that as a reason for determining that this is eligible for a PUD.
Is that a motion?
No, there's still another. Wait.
Chair,
I don't think it's time yet for the motion.
staff put the aerial up, please?
Yeah.
Put the aerial up. Thank you.
Steve?
I like the transition.
So how many units, if, I'm assuming duplexes are not allowed in a cluster, but how many units could be put into this area if it was a cluster option? I'm just curious to know how many units would go in if instead of a PUD, it was a cluster.
I am
don't
going to
think it
have
could
to,
I believe the number is close to 9.
so it's something like that. It's a little above the 6 that would be
Right.
under conventional zoning. So I'm not sure if it's 8 or 9, but it's somewhere in that range.
Okay, so a very significant different number, but again, a cluster, you wouldn't be doing duplexes.
Yeah, most likely you would not, no.
Anything else, Steve? Is that it?
I'm good.
Okay. Mr. Brickner?
If we're going down the road a little bit, we have the school, which is an RA1, correct? That's allowed in an RA1 district,
That's correct, yeah.
very big parking lot. Go one lot further to the west, and that's a temple.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a Sikh temple, with a big parking lot, but that is also an RA1 allowed use.
Correct.
Religious things. I mean, as far as being a buffer, it actually does act as a buffer to Mr. Levy's house, and I figured if Mr. Levy would be upset, he'd be here screaming at us.
There's still a public hearing for that.
Yeah, I know, it's not a public hearing. It doesn't mean he wouldn't be here staring us down. But, I mean, I see it as being a buffer, yes, but the problem is that they're all allowed uses in an RA1. And that was the only thing that bothered me, but it is a good buffer for Mr. Levy's house. There's only one house, basically.
Joe?
I raised the buffer issue, not because I don't see it necessarily as a buffer. It's just that I'm reluctant to set that as a precedent for other areas where there are schools in residential areas and say, oh yeah, sure, put some townhouses there as a buffer. It's just setting it as a precedent. And I'd also like to say that I know this is fairly dense, but I think of 12 Mile as more than just a mile road. It is a major mile road. Just because I would support this here on 12 Mile doesn't mean I would support it on other mile roads.
And it's been a diversion for 696 the last year and a half, 2 years.
It'll turn there next year.
Let's not go there.
Okay,
They did take down the cement batch plant over at Orchard Lake Road, by the way.
that's true.
So they're not making any more cement there right now.
Maybe close to finishing. Yeah, really.
Finally getting close.
Okay,
You want?
yeah, sure. Go ahead, Mr. Brickner.
I move to make a preliminary finding that PUD 3/2024 submitted by Schaefer Development LLC qualifies for the plan unit development option under section 34-3.20.2A through D of the zoning chapter. It is further determined that the proposal meets at least one of the objectives as set forth is outlined in section 34-3.20.2E subparent I through VII, in that it be made clear to the applicant that the final granting of the PUD plan and agreement requires approval by City Council after recommendation by the Planning Commission. The proposed plan preliminarily meets the following qualification standards of section 34-3-20-2-E- being E, sections I, III, IV, and V, or 1, 3, 4, and 5.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Reads out the
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much for the time this evening.
Sure.
Was that Dale? that seconded?
If I can just give my own little Joe summary?
Sure.
We have focused on the preservation of open space. And we'll be looking at that in the next phase.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, next item on the agenda is Site Plan 57-7-2024. The location is 28975 Grand River. Mr. Haddad is here. Give your name to the clerk.
Rawad Haddad. Thank you for the opportunity today. I'll just tell you a little bit about our company. My name is Rawad Haddad. I'm the owner of Quattro Motors. We are in Redford and Farmington Hills currently. We've been in business for 23 years. About 12 years ago, we opened our second location in Farmington Hills on Grand River, and we've been doing business at that location since then. Just a summary, this location, if approved, will only be sales. We're not going to do any repair, any car wash, any detailing, or anything. And that's what we've done for the past 12 years at our current Grand River location. Our main hub in Redford is where we receive our cars, we prep them, we service them, and we have a sales location there, and we have another sales location on Grand River. So this will be our third sales location for the group in general. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
Any questions, commissioners? If not, Mr. Tangeri, Julia's going to do it?
All right. So as mentioned, the applicant's proposed used car sales along Grand River. The site is currently zoned B3 and it's in the GR1 overlay, but the overlay option isn't available for used car sales. It's 1.9 acres and includes an existing 5,610 square foot building, which previously served as a wholesale wireless accessory retailer. The property is between Middlebelt and Rockwell Street on Grand River on the south side. And it's adjacent other BA3 or B3 uses with RA3 in the rear. The applicant's proposing to maintain the existing curb cuts, which there's 2 of along Grand River. They're looking, or sorry, the proposed use of used car sales is a principal permitted use in the B3 district, as long as there's a principal structure and open air display is the accessory component. The site includes spaces for customer parking and car display. And we'll talk a little bit more about the parking in a moment, but car display is obviously allowed as an accessory use in this circumstance. The dimensional standards for this site are, it's an existing structure and they're not proposing any modifications to it. So there is an existing nonconformity with respect to the side lot line to the, sorry, is that east? I'm getting turned around looking at the site. There's also an existing nonconformity with respect to the front yard open space, but they are proposing an increase there. The loading area is not presently compliant. They are 10 square feet short, so they'll need to add additional loading to comply. With respect to the marginal access drive, the ordinance does allow the Planning Commission to require a marginal access drive upon a finding that there's an excessive number of ingress or egress points along a major thoroughfare. However, in this circumstance, given the existing structure, marginal access drive to the east would be infeasible. With respect to pedestrian access ways, there is an existing sidewalk and the pedestrian, or the applicant proposed a 3-foot wide path straight between the internal areas of the site and the sidewalk. The Planning Commission should consider whether this pathway is sufficient to comply with the requirements for pedestrian access. As far as the use standards for motor vehicle sales, the applicant complies with all of them, which includes the required lot width, and also there's no major repair included in the proposed use. With off-street parking, the calculation that's in the parking schedule is not quite correct. It says that there's 22 customer spaces, but if you see on the plans, they have 12 spaces on the east portion of the site, 2 handicap space or 2 barrier-free spaces, and then there is like a section of parking where the whole segment of 10 spaces is labeled as customer parking area, and then 3 individual spaces are labeled as customer parking. I think we need some clarification to the applicant about what the intent is, if that's that whole area or just the 3 spaces. But regardless, the total number of customer parking spaces doesn't add up to 22. So we need that corrected. With that, they are able to comply with the minimum parking requirements of 20 spaces for the use, and excessive parking isn't really a concern because they're allowed to have accessory car display. As mentioned earlier, I'm sorry I skipped ahead, but that the loading space is 10 square feet shy. There is plenty of room, it appears, on the site to provide sufficiently sized loading space. As far as landscaping goes, the plans don't necessarily provide enough clarity about tree removals. There should be a chart on the plans. It doesn't appear as though the applicant is proposing any tree removals, but we just want to make sure that that's clearly noted. In addition, some of the caliper sizes of some of the trees didn't comply with the ordinance requirements. The applicant's going to need to update their landscaping to meet those standards. There is no wall or berm in the portion of the site which abuts residential, which is to the south. The Planning Commission can grant a waiver from that requirement if they make findings that it would serve no good purpose in accordance with the ordinance. As far as the exterior lighting requirements go, the photometric plans notably were incorrectly projected onto the plans. The underlying site plan on the photometric sheet shows more parking spaces than are actually on the site plans in the areas where on that landscaping plan we're seeing trees. So we do need a revised photometric plan that accurately depicts the site plan. But in addition, some of the illumination calcs were non-compliant. So the applicant will need to bring both the foot candles along the property lines as well as the lumen calcs down to meet the ordinance requirements. And finally, in my review, I have one more note about the pedestrian connection, simply asking the Planning Commission to review and discuss. So I think that concludes my report, and happy to answer any questions.
Joe.
I'm just sort of really surprised to see that we require 650 square foot of loading space for a car dealership. That is based on the frontage of the building and not the total square footage of the building or anything like that. I doubt we can give relief from this, but should we rewrite this part of the ordinance so that it makes common sense? I guess that was a soapbox. Thank you.
Mr. Brickner?
Julia, if they do, I noticed there was a lot of nonconformity in their plans. If they meet the Giffords-Webster recommendations, that would satisfy Giffords-Webster that this is an appropriate plan.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, I would say that the items that are left over are, can be cleaned up on the back end if you cite our letter.
Yeah, I understand the lighting goals are too high and other things like that, and I know that they have to recalculate their parking and things like that, but other than that, if it meets this, what you have in your report, that would be okay.
Yeah, I don't think that there's anything remaining that would impact decision-making.
Yeah, in terms of discretion.
Thank you.
Chair?
Sure.
I move that site plan 53-7-2024 be approved as presented and that the requisite notes on the plan be corrected per staff and consultants' review.
Support.
Joe?
I just wanted to comment that on my many, many years here, this is a very rare incident where we have existing nonconformities that are being improved. It just rarely happens.
Would you be willing to support the motion?
Well, he already did it.
Oh, I didn't hear Barry, I'm sorry.
Yes, yes, I had my hand up to do it, but yeah.
Sorry, Barry.
You already did, but I was trying to explain to everybody else, this is a rare thing. Normally, we can't accept nonconformities, but when we have existing nonconformities and they become less nonconforming, that's considered to be a good positive, rarely happens.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
I just have
Now
a
we need to
question,
punch.
because I didn't buy this property yet. I just want to make sure that if I fix whatever is in the report, whatever the consultants requested, I'm good to go, right? I can't lose, because I'm just asking because of the introduction when you started about changing the code or special use for auto-related businesses. I just want to make sure that does not affect this request.
Okay. Charmaine?
I can have a conversation with him on that topic separately from the meeting.
It hasn't passed
We-
yet.
You're okay.
It's being recommended to the council.
I can talk with him about that time frame.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Haddad. Okay, the next item on the agenda is Site Plan 59-9 of 2024. The address is 24300 Drake Road, the construction of a vehicle wash within a B3 General Business District, looking for site plan approval. Is the proponent here?
So, then there's something after this. Who's gonna be doing this? It's GX.
Good evening. I'm Todd Gesund. I'm Vice President and Director of Expansion at Jack's Car Wash. Just want to start off with telling you a little bit about myself first. I am a car wash lifer. I've been in and around and working in the car wash space since I was 9 years old. You're probably familiar, at least I hope so, with the super car wash that we had at 12 Mile and Orchard Lake. That was my family's company. We since partnered with Jack's Car Wash, so it's a Jack's Car Wash now. Also, my history with Farmington Hills doesn't end there. I'm a North Farmington High School graduate. I am my brother ran for county commissioner 3 times in the city of Farmington Hills. I think Mr. Brickner, you might know my brother Ryan. So anyways, I know the area really well. I'd like to introduce the rest of my team here tonight. This is Jim Butler from PEA Group, our civil engineer on the project, and we've got Alyssa Cook from Cunningham Limp, our design build team. We're really excited to be here tonight. Means a lot to me to be in Farmington Hills and working on a project here. Just want to give you a brief history of Jack's Car Wash. We've been a staple in the Metro Detroit area for over 70 years now. We are an institution here. We're owned and operated locally. Foundation of our business has been and continues to be providing excellent customer service. We have 30 locations now. That says 29. We since have 30 in 18 different cities throughout Michigan. What sets us apart? One of the things that we do special at Jack's that not a lot of other car washes do is we hand towel dry every vehicle. We're kind of like an old dinosaur in that respect. We say hello to our customers when they enter the lot, and our towel dry team says goodbye to them when they leave the lot. That makes us very unique. We have state-of-the-art equipment. We build beautiful buildings. We offer free vacuums. We have an indoor mat cleaning room, and that has restrooms in it should our customers need to use. Community involvement, we have a Jack's Gives Back Charity Weekend. We just had that weekend a few weeks ago. It went really well. We do a lot of school fundraisers, school donations. We're very involved in every community that we're in. No organization gets denied. We help to raise thousands of dollars each year in the communities in which we reside. Why Farmington Hills? Why do we want to be in Farmington Hills? One, we know it's a great community, fills a geographic need for Jack's. Very strong population here. There's 15,000 people in a 1 mile radius of our site, 72,000 in a 3 mile, 72,000 people in a 3 mile radius, excuse me. We got Muirwood Apartments across the street. There's multiple apartment complex on Grand River, both east and west of Drake, along with the many vast neighborhoods that surround this area. All of this, especially being across from a thriving grocery store like Bush's Market, as well as a very busy McDonald's and the other retail and restaurants that are nearby, we feel like we're a very complementary business for these other establishments. Benefits to the community. We feel like we fill a need for the residents. As I mentioned, very dense population. The amenities of Jack's Car Wash, what we do, free vacuums, hand towel drying, a mat room with restrooms inside. We also have something that not a lot of people probably have seen. All of our new buildings now have a conveyor belt. So imagine when you're at the airport and you've got those walkways that help you take you through the, now we're putting in these conveyor belts, which are on each side. Your tires go on it, very easy to get on instead of being guided into a very narrow track. Much more expensive than a general conveyor, but they accommodate a lot of the newer vehicles that are now on the roads today. One of the other things I just wanted to point out too is, I think in the area there where we're at, and I remember this area from growing up, we're going to give that area a shot in the arm. The history of the Drake Corridor, we had Bob Sachs dealership that really took up that whole corner. That went out of business, with all the stuff going on in the early to mid 2000s. McDonald's then built AutoZone. But I think that what we bring there, and I'll show you pictures of the building coming up, but it's really going to help revive that area. Hopefully it gives it a shot in the arm. Not that that area is that bad, but it's very, this is what it looks like today. You can see, if I have my little pointer, but you can see the area where we're at. It's that very bare area on the, that would be the southeast corner of, or northeast corner of Drake and Grand River. It's really going to give it a shot in the arm. And we believe with the reputation of Jack's, the traffic we'll bring to that area as well, that, it might enhance other developers to, build where the Bob Sachs was on Grand River. There's our building. Just want to talk about site layout. Let me go to the site layout. So we come in, we're eliminating a curb cut. So we're using a same curb cut that AutoZone uses off of Drake. So the customers will come in from that curb cut. They will then turn into their queuing area, which is on the bottom of that layout there. There's 3 pay stations that they'll go through. We can stack as many as 30 cars in that area should we need to. They'll then go through the car wash. They can also escape. If something happened, their window wouldn't go up, they'd be able to escape out the back side of the car wash on that road you see at the very top. Also on that road, we added, per city request, some connectivity. Should that development behind us be developed at some point, so there'll be some connectivity to that property. But the customers will go through the car wash, they'll come out, we will dry them, and then they have the opportunity to go into the vacuum area. So the vacuum area here is what we call aftercare. So they won't be able to go before they go through the car wash in the vacuums, they'll go after, which actually is, we don't have a lot of sites like that. It's really good. It really preserves the vacuum area. It makes it really only for the customers, our customers. A lot of our other vacuum areas that anybody can get to, they sometimes get destroyed because it's not our customers. They don't care. They just come in and use the vacuum. So this is unique also. Go back to the building. We designed our building per all city ordinance and code. As you can see, it's a beautiful building. It's a combination of split-face masonry with brick veneer and accents of cementitious siding. It's certainly not your typical looking car wash. We have a landscape plan that exceeds what's required, giving our building and property a classic and timeless, I think, like park-like setting to me. Operationally, very neighborhood friendly. Hours of operation, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Sunday. Conversely, Bush's, they're open 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. across the street, Monday through Saturday, and 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Sunday. So very similar hours. We have anywhere from 4 to 6 employees at a time working on site. We're going to employ hopefully 15 to 20 team members at this site. In closing, thanks again for letting me stand up here. I know it's been a long night. If you have any questions for myself or Jim Butler or Alyssa, fire away.
Oh, I have one. Show me your entrance again off Drake, if you would, please. Mr. Brickner, I think you know where I'm going.
Yeah.
You can't, if you're headed southbound on Drake, you can't turn left into your,
Can you speak on that? Because
I mean, right now, there's a sign that says,
You can't
no.
make a
Isn't that right,
left
Mr.
turn
Brickner?
That's right. I was going to ask the same question.
Yeah.
That triangle there, you can't make a left turn into that, you'd have to go all the way around, cut through McDonald's to get there. I don't know why they did that.
So going southbound on Drake.
Yes.
Turn into that marginal access drive.
Yeah,
You're going,
you can't get there.
Yeah, you can't make a left
You
turn.
gotta make a left turn.
Well, right now, if you want to make a left turn, the drive that you were cutting, you're going to build over, that's how you make a left in there. But you can't make a left where the triangle is because it says no left turn.
Unaware of that.
That's why we're here to help.
There.
I'm very much unaware of that. I mean,
Are you going to show movies there too? Because we've been waiting for the theater for a long time.
Are you proposing to use that giant retention pond
yeah,
offsite?
that detention basin was sized for this development. What we've been asked for from the engineering department is to add some stormwater pretreatment. Because right now there's an entire storm sewer system. It takes water from the AutoZone and the McDonald's into that basin as well. Cuts through our development. We're going to be attaching to that development, that storm sewer system. Just before we discharge into the basin, we're going to put a water quality unit in.
To do what?
Excuse me?
To do what? Take the
Well,
same-
essentially what we're required to do pursuant to new stormwater standards is to treat the water for suspended solids.
Okay,
or
oil,
grease, oil, sands,
All right.
sediment.
Thank you. Danielle?
So given that the owner of the land is Box Office Theaters, are you purchasing it from?
yeah, we are purchasing it.
So where they were supposed to give us a movie theater, you're getting the whole thing? The whole kit?
Yes.
Gotcha. So no movie theater?
No, that's kind of died a long time ago.
I
Yes,
was
Kristen?
holding out hope.
Carol, just for your notes, the agenda is wrong. It should be BMW, not BWM.
Should be what?
BMW, car wash,
Oh,
just for your notes.
W?
BMW, yeah.
Thank you.
And how do you know that?
Because I looked at their site plans and I read.
That's two.
And, well, we wrote the agenda. I supposedly wrote the agenda.
Oh, that's right, you did.
I
I'm
did.
sorry.
Where are we gonna make concrete?
You know,
that's
this
the
has
other
been
question.
kind of
No movie
controversial because
theater,
the
no
match plan.
concrete.
The apartments are not being built on Northwestern.
There you go.
There you go, that's right. Are you familiar with the fire marshal's comments of
Yes.
tonight on the bollards?
Yes.
You're ready to work with him on that?
Yes, I mean, the fire department, we had an initial conversation during our pre-application meeting. He wanted an 18-foot wide drive around the entire perimeter.
The access drive that's to the north that we're adding is essentially for the purpose of, again, bypass, but it also provides fire lane. If you look on the far right side of the plan, we have those 3 pay stations, which are called XPTs. The one farthest to the right is going to be enlarged. Typically, we have, you know, the arms that come
Right.
down.
You got the cameras and all that stuff that go in there?
Yeah, and what's going to happen there, we had shown 2 breakaway bollards. He doesn't want that.
No.
So we're going to put a gate in there.
Okay. Why doesn't your cameras read the new license plates, Todd?
They are 95% effective.
Not where I go.
If you are having an issue, we have fast passes that we can
Yeah, right.
give out.
Your guys take care of it, but it's just,
I know, I've heard this many times.
anyway. Any other questions? Mr. Brickner?
I move. Do we have to hear from somebody?
Oh.
That's the ones you guys talk.
Gary's always eager to take the motion all the time.
So I think you guys are pretty familiar with this site, but they're proposing a Jack's Car Wash on a 2.7 acre site zoned B3. It's currently vacant. There is a current curb cut into the site, as discussed, that is being closed, but they're using the marginal access drive to the south, which connects to the auto zone. They're surrounded by other B3 with B2 across the street. Car washes are principal permitted uses in the B3 district, but they do require a planning commission review. The marginal access drive to the business to the south and ingress only cross-access easement from the car dealership to the east are serving the site, and the applicant did not provide easements for either of those, the marginal access or the cross-access, so that information must be submitted. The site does meet all of the dimensional requirements. There is a 260 square foot loading requirement, and that just needs to be shown on the site. The rooftop and ground mounted equipment on the site must be identified and appropriately screened. There is an issue with the turning radius. So it is only 20 feet at both the entrance and the exit to the car wash. So that does need to be addressed. The ordinance requires 25. The drive-through lane isn't marked and should be clearly delineated. There is a requirement, in addition to the ingress stacking, for the applicant to show egress stacking, and you're supposed to have 2 required spaces. It does appear that there's sufficient room, but we want to see that on the plans. The ordinance doesn't allow dead-end parking aisles, but the planning commission can if they determine that there's a sufficient area for turning around, and because that internal parking lot does have 2 directional, it's a 2-way parking lot, there is sufficient area for turning around if the planning commission wants to waive that. The landscaping is generally compliant, however, there is a requirement for them to provide a hedge. The site does include existing trees along the frontage, which provides partial screening, but the planning commission may consider whether that adequately mitigates the impact of a car wash use, and confirm if they're comfortable with only maintaining the existing trees, or if additional landscaping along that frontage is required. There are some notes in the review letter that we provided that we want to see added to the plans with respect to lighting, and we do need additional details on the building mounted fixtures. The bypass lane exceeded the maximum illumination ratio, so we need that brought down. And the building mounted lights over the entrances exceeded the 2,000 maximum lumen requirement, so we'd need to see that illumination reduced. Aside from that, I think that concludes our review letter.
Steve?
So currently, the property to the north, there's a curb cut, well, there's 2 curb cuts on the property to the north. One of which looks like it's also got a cross access. So this plan is going to remove that cross access drive to the property to the north?
Yeah, it doesn't
So
provide
I guess,
cross-access.
is that an issue with engineering? Normally, we're promoting cross-accesses, and here we're removing one.
Two,
We
there's
did
two,
What?
there's two accesses north of that.
Right, no, cross-access, just like there's an access down to the auto zone, this is removing the access to the north.
There's two accesses to the north they're
Right.
getting rid of.
Yeah.
There's one right next to the, right next to the dealership, I mean, the car
enterprise.
rental place.
Yep.
There's actually two of them by the car rental place. But this would get
I
rid of
think
both.
we were okay with the one curb cut, but we were looking for two-way traffic on that ring road. That is the only thing that we were really looking for.
I'm just surprised in, in the previous one of the things was to have another access drive to the property to the south on Grand River, to
Right.
the east on Grand River. In this case, we have an access to the property to the north currently, and we're going to remove that. It just seems you're asking for it in a property that we can't do it.
Can we go
And on
back to
this
the
one.
picture you had while he talks?
Which is the rendering?
The over,
Right there.
probably another,
Under here.
that's, I don't think that shows the access. Oh, yeah, it does.
No one does it here.
No.
It appears as though the entire parking lot extends to the north.
Right. Can you go, is there another aerial?
They can't connect to that. They can connect.
That's the only one
That's the
we
only
have.
one I have in the
There's
presentation.
actually two entrances to the north of the one, that you're gonna get rid of both of the entrances. No one uses one that's near the.
Right, north is bottom on this picture, right?
Right, there's one right here, there's one right here, and this is the one they're talking about keeping, and they're getting rid of these two.
This is.
They're not getting rid of anything because the other ones are on other people's property.
No? I don't
Yeah.
think so.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's
but
the
that's why it's open.
cross-access, so not using Drake, just like you're going down to AutoZone. There's an access going up to the enterprise, and now we're cutting that off.
There isn't access to Enterprise. It doesn't go all the way
Well,
down.
just before enterprise,
Well,
but it's their
Yeah,
property.
'cause if you look at the picture, it sort of goes to nowhere. It's like the parking lot goes on someone else's lot and then it just stops.
True, but we normally ask for that to be there for future
So-
use on that north property.
So we would like this cleaned up, but the problem is really on the neighbor's property, not this property, right?
Yeah, that would be right.
Say clean it up and close it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it might be on a common area, actually.
But you're gonna put grass there.
Enterprise is gonna use the
So
curb.
That's what we're proposing.
What if you flipped it
That's what I'm thinking.
and had your entrance next to Enterprise?
Use the existing curb cut
Yeah.
and keep the AutoZone one,
Well, the existing curb cut is on someone else's property,
not the second one.
No, if you would go to the,
on somebody else's property.
The middle one is not. The middle one
Well,
is on
we
the car wash.
originally.
Is that the one they're using?
No.
That's the one you get
that one, this is our property.
over here.
That's off.
This one's the one that they're talking about.
Right, but we were eliminating this one. So actually, we're eliminating one curb cut.
Paved, and then you can go up.
Right?
Yeah, I guess I'm just curious to understand why, we normally want these access drives between properties, and in this case, we don't.
I think in this case, it would create more access points into the site if you did that, but it wouldn't actually connect it to the neighboring use. So it would just exacerbate traffic on Drake. It wouldn't actually mitigate traffic by creating somewhere for people to travel through the site.
I mean, right now, you could go, you can make the left turn there to get onto that property, which you're not gonna be able to.
Access here. That whole push button.
Sure, yeah, and I think that needs to be resolved separately, but.
Joe?
That's where I went wrong.
So I'm getting the picture now, I think. And if we are talking about having the entrance directly across from the entrance to Bush's, I think this is really problematic. If I may say, explain, when you come from Grand River, as I do, and then you need to turn left into Bushes, the left turn lane on Drake, headed south to Grand River, starts immediately after that entrance. And now you're going to have people coming south who are going to want to turn left into the car wash, and it's going to be extremely difficult, and I'm going to say potentially hazardous, to enter the Bushes parking lot at that spot, the way things are currently, set up, and I really think engineering should take a serious look at this. I've often felt that the turn lane southbound on Drake started too early because it never gave us, who were going north on Drake, an opportunity to get over to turn left into Bushes. Okay? And this is just going to compound that problem. So the actual egress site, to me, is a really big issue. I'd like them to take a good look at it. I say table this until next month, because this is the heart of the issue.
Mr. Brickner?
Some of us who live over there, like John and I, there's a double yellow line that goes past where they want to put their entrance, okay? And
It
as I
goes
was
right to where they want to put their entrance.
No, it's there, because I did the southerly route to get to City Hall this evening, and I got into the left turn lane, which would allow people to make left turns there before you get to the intersection, because that's how big the left turn lane is. And somebody was already going over the double yellow line as I was trying to get into the left turn lane to make their left turn into Bushes, but they went over a double yellow line, and they did something illegal, but I didn't pull over enough so they could hit me. But the biggest problem they have is that if they want to do that as an ingress-egress point for people coming south on Drake Road, they're going to have to change that entrance way over there and not make it get rid of the island and allow for a left turn into that parking lot, because actually that's how you get into McDonald's if you're coming off of Drake instead of going all the way around in a big circle. I've only lived there for 41 years, so I kind of know my way around.
Well, for those of us who don't know our way around, it's very dangerous.
Steve wants to talk. He's next.
So, I mean, we're asking for an access to the Bob Sachs. It's got access to AutoZone. The Enterprise building, I would think, is a prime candidate for some future development. I mean, to me, I've always wondered how Enterprise actually survives in that area. So if we're cutting off that access drive to the north, are we going to impact development in the future of that Enterprise zone or Enterprise property? Again, I'm just baffled with how we're removing an internal access road, and we're asking for it on one side and we're removing it from the other. I think this needs to continue that access road. We normally want those, and here we're getting rid of it when it already exists.
Charmaine?
It's been noted in the engineering review letter that we have, as a city, asked for a traffic study for that location that may illustrate a little bit more what needs to happen on the site for improvements.
Correct.
Do you
But we don't have that at
want to
this
handle this
time.
internally, or do you want it to come back here?
It's at the planning commission's discretion whether they want to move forward with the plan as it's proposed, or if they want to postpone it until they have a traffic study that will illustrate a little bit better what's happening with the proposed development.
I think asking for this access road is a significant change to the design. And I think we need to figure out a way to continue to have that access to the north property. And I don't think it's something administratively, it's a key part that's one way in their design.
Okay, so you want to come back? You want it to come
I'd
back?
like to see it come back.
Barry?
Wait,
and then
can you go
I will
back?
tell you
Hold on,
this.
hold on.
You know, can we
I will
Jim,
tell
you
you
want-
this, I will tell you this, that there is an access drive there now already. It goes to the entrance that's a little bit to the north. Your only choice is to make a right turn at that. Once you get into it, you can only go right, because you go left, you go into the gravel. So you can make a left turn there now, but as part of their plan, they were talking about getting rid of that entranceway. But again, there's already a paved road there. And that's how I get into that place if I wanted to go in that way. And, but if they get rid of that one particular access road, they're gonna have to deal with the other entranceway, which is closer to the auto zone. And right now, you can't make a left turn in there because because they have a cement barrier making people come in this way or go out that way. And you can't make a left in there, which would.
Call a pork chop.
Okay, they have a pork chop there, and the pork chop would really chop a hole in your business if you get rid of, unless you fix that.
Joe?
I would just hope that the traffic study would do more than just look at the issues on the property and the traffic counts, and would also consider the impact on traffic trying to access what I'm calling the Bushes parking lot. I find it very hard under existing conditions to get in there. And this is going to make, and this could potentially make that worse, and I'm concerned about it.
Dale?
I'm okay with the traffic study, but I don't think it's up to the proponent to do a regional area
I know.
traffic study of everything and incur the costs of that. So certainly they got to look how this works for them. But if there's a larger study we have to do to make sense of this whole area, then we should probably do that, give us some direction. And I'd be interested also in the proponent's time frame in terms of what approvals they need to get and their timing to do this, if they're looking at purchasing or financing something. I'd like their input on it so we can make a decision on what serves everybody.
First, I just want to say one thing really quick on connectivity. We're all about connectivity. The more access that we can get from other businesses, into our lot, we're all for that. It's been our experience in some of the other developments we have that, eliminating curb cuts is a good thing when you have too many curb cuts. So that's kind of where we played around with this a lot. We thought this was best, to share this access with the AutoZone, with the McDonald's. We did create access. The top of the site layout there, you see access going back, which is, to the east where the other parcel, where new development would be. As far as access to Enterprise, let me go back to that one. I don't see where that is now. But of course, if there could be access through this same area, could also make a right turn out or go straight out at that point. So
Going to your point, Mr. Sisson, about the access along Drake Road. You look at this picture, right? And you see this example. Your thought is that road coming off the access drive that's shared with AutoZone and McDonald's, that would continue north?
Yep.
And tie to the north property line?
Correct. Because part of it's gravel today, but that is an access road, and that's normally something we look to add.
But the question I have is, doesn't and won't that Enterprise piece have its own access to Drake Road? Is it being restricted in any manner, shape, or form?
No, they just have the one entrance.
What?
Enterprise. Okay.
If we were to,
They're further north. Their entrance is right here.
Yeah, so that curb cut just to the south of.
yeah, I got what you're saying.
Yeah, when you get north of this property line,
That's not,
before you get to the Enterprise parking lot, there's another curb cut, and then you have the Enterprise curb cut. So there's kind of this weird interstitial area between the property line and the actual Enterprise parking lot where there is access off of Drake right now.
And there's an agreement that's in the title work related to access. It's very gray. It talks of what it wishes to have, but it doesn't give like anything else, it doesn't give you much specificity. It doesn't have specific areas where this is to occur. It just talks of it. If this was, say, a strip center, where we had two-way traffic going all the way around, this is a little bit of a different animal because of the way, for his business, traffic moves counterclockwise through the development. So creating joint access and free access to and from, like you're proposing along, kind of what along Orchard Lake Road used to have, that marginal access road, right? It creates somewhat of an issue for traffic in, traffic out, and how it maneuvers with this development. It's challenging. One of the thoughts that we had, and we could certainly put a drive to the north and make a connection. So they could have a connection off of that east-west-north drive. We can do that. The two-way traffic thing creates an issue because, again, the way traffic moves within his development. The other thought that we had, if you look on the southerly drive we have, if you would extend that drive, which is a one-way drive, you could extend it to the east. So you would have two-way traffic between the two developments, right? And you continue and have an access to the north. So it kind of creates what you want to accomplish. Everybody has access. Again, it's a bit of a challenge because of the way the layout and the way this development type it works. If it was a strip center or any other retail, it'd be a lot easier to do. And again, if you look at the McDonald's in the auto zone, they have it with the development, but that's up front. We're kind of caught because of the way we have this back situation. If it was just simply going north, not a problem. But with the challenge we have now is going to the east and making that work too. Would men make it work with the circulation of our traffic?
Do you have the engineer's letter dated October?
I do.
Item
You got
number
it?
4
Yep.
has it.
Okay.
And we did talk with the traffic engineer this afternoon about a study. He wasn't looking for a full-fledged study. He was more about access and circulation and how that would function. That was his big concern.
Yeah, I mean, that is in the engineering, that's from engineering saying they want that stub to continue to the north.
Right. Good catch.
Again, we can accomplish that it's kind of in the manner that just discussed. We can create and have an access to the north. We can have the second access to the east, create that two-way. So we can accomplish what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
Mr. Manny?
I guess the point is, you have proposed an access that doesn't seem to work because people leaving will have to always turn right. And if they go out there, hey, it's almost impossible for them to turn left. You can see why it's designed that way. So overall, it appears to us that you need a different access.
Or get an amended access to that marginal drive.
Or whatever. It's just a big issue right there, right? People can only, right now, it appears as though people can only come from the south and enter, and then they can only exit and go to the north. It's laid out that way. Right?
Yep.
And so I think we would want you to come back with a new access. And we've identified all kinds of issues for you to worry about. But it's probably up to you to come back to us with a more realistic, comprehensive plan for traffic coming from both the north, the south, the east, the west, whatever. Traffic coming from any direction, getting into your place, and traffic going out in any direction. Okay? That's what I suggest.
So my priority would be the north and south versus to the east, because there already is one down at AutoZone and McDonald's going to the east. It's nice to have it up this high north as well, but if I had to pick an access that's continued, it would be the north-south.
Yeah, but it's going to be contradictory to what the terms of the easement are, unfortunately. Yeah, we only just found out the need for a traffic study in the letter. We did have a pre-application meeting 6 weeks ago. It was never mentioned to us. That's unfortunate.
Well, and then Dale has mentioned that we don't want to make too big an onus on you. So at this point, we're simply saying, I would think, that you have to come up with a more comprehensive plan and come back to us. You may then be asked for a traffic study, whether or not you want to do one first, I don't know. You can talk to the city planners. So that's what I would suggest. Should I make some kind of motion that we table this?
That'd be a start, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to move that we table this to
It's postponed.
postpone. I would like to postpone. I propose that we postpone this to, we can say the next meeting, and then they can ask for a further extension if they want one, right?
Okay, is there support?
Support.
It's been moved and supported.
Discussion?
Yeah.
Yes.
So does staff have any background on this pork chop, the origins of this? What development, what drove that?
As part of
The access point that they're proposing?
We'd have to talk to Mark Saksuski about that first. Mark would have more information on that workshop.
We don't have anything tonight.
Not tonight, no.
It may be back when they put in the AutoZone, may go back that far.
Yeah, I'm curious, was it a part of a requirement of site plan approval of some other development that was laid out the way it was, and we're violating some other approval that was granted in the past?
Probably don't want people making lefts out of there.
Right. So it would be good, as part of the research, if Mark or whatever, could research that, let us know
Yeah.
Them, no.
the genesis of that, so we understand kind of a full picture of what our options are when we look at that entrance, if that is where they decide they want to go.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck. Like the development.
We'd love to see this area developed.
Yeah.
Love to.
Okay. Next item on agenda is,
Well, I have to make a statement.
oh, that's right, I'm sorry. Mr. Schultz? Mr. Brickner?
I was disclosed to the commission that I've represented the next proponent in the past, and he actually paid his bill off yesterday. What's going to be before the commission has nothing to do with my representation of Mr. Sieber in the past. And I wanted that disclosed, and if that is considered a conflict, I'll ask for legal counsel to tell me whether that's conflicting.
That is not a conflict unless Mr. Brickner says he can't be fair and unbiased. Assuming he can be, it's not a conflict.
I can be fair and unbiased, but I wanted that to be disclosed before anybody has, before any questions were raised.
Okay. Last item on the agenda, then is lot split 4 of 2024 final, south side of Kentfield, just east of Tuck. Split 2 parcels into 3 parcels within RA3, one-family residential. The applicant is Terry Sieber for Crossman's Court. Hello, Terry Sieber.
Hello. I'm not going to lie, like everybody else, I'm not excited to be here. It's past my bedtime. You know, people are up here talking about living in the community and doing stuff. And I was sitting there thinking about, well, what the heck was I doing 40 years ago? And lo and behold, 40 years ago, I was out passing literature in the community, and Ronald Reagan was running for president, but because there was a resignation on the city council, there was an opening for that unusual time. You know, we're usually off years. So I was out passing literature, and I think the last place I went was the Independence Greens. But anyhow, I'm looking, I see John here and I see Barry. You know, if one of you guys had voted for me, I would have won that election. I end up on election night being declared the winner by 25 votes. And then there was a recount with the Chad cards and everything, and I end up losing by 1. And there were 34,000 people that voted in Farmington Hills. So that story puts the Al Gore story to rest, right?
Yes.
Anyway, I'm here. The lot split that's being proposed is consistent with the ordinance. And I'm satisfied with it being approved, subject to engineering. However, some of the engineering comments are not accurate because the Planning Commission approved a split a few months ago as part of this. And there was going to be a road proposed to extend past the last lot. And when I talked to Mr. Cabrera, Jim Cabrera, about this back then, he said that he would not approve building on the lot that was furthest west. So then the owner of the property decided to move forward with extending the road to meet that requirement. Because basically the city ordinance says you have to extend water, sewer, and pavement to the end of the lot line. So they've already gotten approval to build the road and have started construction on it. They had a construction meeting and all that kind of stuff. So the road is in the works, being installed up to the farthest red line to the west, which is the westerly lot line of the split that we're talking about tonight. So basically, the comments about the road, they would like to see the road extended, like to see the water line extended. That's beyond the authority of the engineering to be even require that. But just as a side note, I can work that out. It's no big deal, but it's already been decided, and they've already started construction on that. That's my only update as far as what's going on. The rest of it is meets the city ordinance requirements.
Thank you. So as mentioned, this lot split may look familiar because it was in front of you guys in January, but they did a slightly different split, turning that big square parcel into the two parcels that you guys are looking at now. In this application, they proposed to reassemble those parcels and split them into 3 separate lots. The maps do indicate the presence of hydric soils in the area. That shouldn't stop them from being able to accomplish a split, and this is something we talked about in January as well. However, it's something, a wetland determination may be required when they do go to get any kind of building permits. The split does result in 3 parcels. One is 0.85 acres, one's 0.63 acres, and the other is 0.63 acres, all with frontage on Kentfield. They do meet the dimensional standards for the RA3 district and the 4:1 required ratio under the Land Division Act. One of the parcels is 3.78 to 1, so it's close, but they all meet it. The parcels are consistent with surrounding lots. They generally have a variety of sizes and proportions and widths to the north and west. To the south and east, there is the Kimberly condominiums, and those lots are more uniform. They're about 12,000 to 15,000 square feet with widths about 80 to 90 feet. So while these lots are considerably larger, they do have similar frontages. The proposed splits won't create any changes or exacerbate any issues when it comes to yard orientations, relationships between side and rear. As mentioned earlier, the site is impacted by wetland soils, or appears to be, and buildability should be confirmed but not impact the land division today. And as far as the frontages go, they are similar to the surrounding, albeit there is the greater depth, and that is a result of the original split from that larger parent parcel. I will note that under the Land Division Act, you're only allowed to split a parent parcel 4 times every 10 years, and this has obviously been 2 of them that we know of. So a review by the assessor to confirm that it is eligible to go forward should also take place.
Okay.
Chairman, could I respond to that, please?
Sure.
One is, you made references to the soil. You've got a picture of this in your packet. Just for reference, I'm not an expert, but you can see where that designation includes some 20 homes that have already been built there in that designation. With regard to the lot split, you're allowed to go split 4 times every 10 years.
Yeah.
There was still 2 splits allowed in this
That's what she said.
qualification, so that does meet the
Yeah,
requirement.
she said that.
Okay.
But
I didn't get.
I want to go to the same graphic that he was just talking about, just because there's all this yellow that's trying to make a point, but the yellow doesn't appear to be in the index here to explain what the yellow means.
The yellow is representative of hydric soils, which
thought.
are all mapped by Eagle on their wetlands viewer.
I just wanted to make sure.
That's where that layer comes from.
I just wanted to make sure, because the wetlands, I don't see any wetlands, and I wanted to make sure that wasn't, you see what I mean? There's
Yeah, it
green
has
for
to do with how
wetlands, and I don't see
Eagle
any.
Yellow's on
defines
there.
and
Yellow's the very
determines what a
top.
wetland
one
is,
is
whether or
hydric.
not those hydric soils would
Oh,
count towards
shit.
regulated
I'm-
wetlands.
It basically,
Please strike that from
it's Eagle's way of saying if you don't do anything, it gets wet, it'll grow into a wetland. It's more of a predetermined.
It's just that my sight is that bad that I could not see that yellow on that background
And there's a
color.
teeny blip of green right at the corner.
Wait till you're old. Just wait till you're old.
I'm there.
Fine, sorry.
Any other discussion? Mr. Seaver?
That is hard to see.
Is your proponent on this, is he violently opposed to extending the road to Tuck? Is that what you're telling us?
Well, it's an undue expense for the benefit of one lot. You know,
Well, no, it isn't really, because that continues, it makes a loop and it provides you with water and sewer loop, right?
no, the sewer and water is already there.
Is through that plat?
The sewer is to the end, the water is being extended. The requirement for the ordinance that it has to go to the end of the property line.
No, but my point is, so now you're at the end of the water line. My point is, does it go back and connect with the water main on Tuck?
No, it does not. And it's not a requirement of the ordinance.
Don't you want that?
Of course we do.
Yes.
We want a loop system.
You want a loop system?
Yeah, but I don't think you can require that according to the ordinance.
So
You can't?
Yes, Mr.
when,
Schultz.
when you make your motion, the language should be, instead of constructing to Tuck, all you need to say and all you should say is subject to final engineering review and approval.
Right.
What we can do, we'll do. So I
Okay.
think that's enough. And
There's
I do
one-
also think you need to add, Mr. Chair, the statement that the city assessor not only be so notified, but that he determined that it's eligible for another split along these lines.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Mr. Brickner?
The only question I have is, he can do a lot split, but as far as where he puts sewer pipes and whether or not he can even build on it, has
We're
nothing to
not
do with a
doing
lot split, does it?
We're not doing that, but if you say subject to final engineering review and approval, you pick all that up.
Also, their language was it's recommended, it's not required.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Motion?
Please.
I move the lot split for 2024 final approval be approved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded.
Right? Hang on.
Did you not, there's discussion here.
He wants that language in it.
Yeah, you're supposed to find that the lots are compatible. You're supposed to read the language that hopefully is in front of you.
Oh, I didn't have it in my.
Yeah.
I unsecond.
I move, I stand corrected, thank you.
Break.
Mr. Schultz.
I trust you.
I move that final lot split for 2024 submitted by Terry Seaver be approved because it appears to meet all applicable provisions of Chapter 34 zoning and Chapter 27 subdivision of land of the city code and will result in land parcels generally compatible with surrounding parcels in the vicinity, and the city assessor be so notified, subject to, wait a minute.
Final engineering
so-
review and approval?
And be subject to final review and approval of engineering. Thank you.
And,
I'll second
And-
that.
and if I may, the maker of the motion, that the city assessor determine that the parcel is eligible for these splits.
They already have, sir.
I wanted
They
in the
have.
record.
We have confirmed that with the assessor. They're eligible for the divisions that are proposed.
Still would like that in the
He
motion.
wants it in
In
the
the
motion.
motion. Thank you, as noted.
And I
As
second
noted.
that addition
As-
to the motion.
as-
Cheryl, did you get that?
Sorry, Cheryl.
I got distracted, I was writing it down, but I'll get it from the tape.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right.
As confusing, sir, as that discussion was, I think the salient point is the presentation that our consultant gave us highlighted absolutely no legal issues. And therefore, I believe we should go ahead and approve this.
And that's the reason for the motion.
That's the reason, yeah.
Support.
That's the reason for my seconding. No, that was the reason for my seconding, and I already seconded it.
Yes, it's been moved and
We
seconded.
need
Is there further discussion? No. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion's approved. Thank you, Mr. Seaver.
One last question. Joe, who appointed you to the plan commission?
Vicky Barnett.
Okay, okay, that explains it. Thank you very much. Appreciate your.
Hey, Terry.
Okay, now we need to approve the minutes of September 16th and September 19th, regular meetings.
I move to approve the minutes for September 16th and the 19th, regular meeting.
I second it.
Been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. We have no one left in the public for the public comments. Commissioner comments. Joe?
Well, sir, I observe that it seems as though the order in which the presentations are being made has been changed. And we have bylaws, and the bylaws specifically lay out the order in which the presentations are supposed to be made, and that order changes by the type of case that we're looking at. And I think we should either follow the bylaws or we should revise the bylaws. That's my comment.
Okay.
So specifically as it relates to proponents versus staff?
Sometimes the staff's supposed to speak first, sometimes the proponent's supposed to speak first, and it's all laid out in our bylaws.
We'll get a card. I'll follow it.
I'm sorry?
Wouldn't be bylaws.
I just want to say that this is something that when I was chair, Dale sat me down and went over it with me as you know, in his old role, and told me how important it
Don't suck me
was.
into that, Joe.
It was all your fault, and I learned my lesson.
Thank you, Mr. Manick. Dale?
I'm set. Thank you, Joe.
Mr. Brickner?
Night, night.
Night. Marissa? No? You? No? Comments?
Charmaine, I was wondering, with the intent that we have around creating new districts or improving our districts in certain ways, but great areas or large areas that were intended to be redeveloped into more of an entertainment space like I thought Grand River was supposed to be, do we have any plan more than us meeting with the city council around how we develop that a little more quickly? Because it seems like the car wash, as case in point, comes in and it disrupts in a way, in my brain, where we're going or where we'd like to go with some of these properties.
It's difficult to have that transition timing, but we do have plans for new discussions coming up. We were planning to start on 12 Mile to have that conversation before Grand River, but all of those main corridors are on our schedule to discuss with the Planning Commission and then council the direction of those spaces as matches the master plan. The reason that we're starting with 12 miles, it's a little bit easier to jumpstart those conversations to get us going. And we do have the market study already started for the 12-mile Orchard Lake Road area. Grand River market study is coming just behind that, a month or two down the line. They don't have the contracts in place for that just yet. And we'd really like to have that additional information when we're looking at these main corridors and be fully informed before we make big changes to those spaces. So in the next few months, we are assembling some study sessions to start going over these larger issues with you that relate to the master plan, the corridors, the flex locations, expansion of uses in those areas. We've got quite a bit that's coming to you on those. But you're right to observe, this is going to be a difficult time, especially for the businesses within our community to understand what it is that we're intending for these spaces and what they need to bring in as far as proposals that'll get approved.
Thank you. In those meetings, isn't there a Grand River?
There's a Grand River Corridor Authority.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're meeting on the 25th to discuss that market study a little bit further and talk about the different options that they have for the consultant.
So will
that's
we
coming up.
engage with them as well? You know?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, especially with Grand River, they're contributing quite a bit of the funding for the purchase of that market study.
Okay. Thank you. That's all.
I'm good. You're good? Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Their support?
Support.
Move to support. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. We're adjourned.
Okay.